This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, all hell break is all, let me try that again. I'm a little rattled right now, Real Talkers. All hell is breaking loose in our home province, and I would imagine that we're going to have a decent portion of this audience, as is often the case, tuning in, checking out the podcast. We appreciate that, watching us on YouTube from across the country. Alberta making news on a number of fronts. We're hearing that we're talking to you on a Thursday, and on Saturday, and 2 days from now, Alberta's nurses, LPNs, AUPE, basically, members are going to be going on strike unless something happens between now and then. Alberta's finance minister saying that he doesn't expect, Minister Horner doesn't expect to see the notwithstanding clause invoked, but I would suspect that everyday Albertans are cynical about that after it has been invoked essentially 4 times on 2 different occasions. Bills 2, Bill 9, that was the previous that got teachers back into classrooms. And then, of course, as you know, the UCP government protecting its laws relating to transgender youth in the province from court challenges. And we discussed that at length in a Real Talk Roundtable in our most recent episode. And we encourage you to check that one out. We're grateful that you're here. There's also news that the government has decided to close, that the government will close. And we've heard from Real Talkers on this that work within the healthcare system under a promise of anonymity, that the UCP is closing a supervised consumption site at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. That's Edmonton's downtown or inner city hospital. It's one of the busiest hospitals in Canada. This means that inpatients, it means that people who use drugs, people that are experiencing addiction to drugs, will not now have safe and supervised consumption options. They will be continuing to use. Let's be realistic. Let's be honest, but they will not do it under the supervision of healthcare professionals. They'll be leaving a supervised care facility, one of Alberta's busiest hospitals, one of Canada's busiest hospitals, and they'll be stepping outside where they would be before, behind dumpsters, on the street. I'm fired up right now, walking in downtown Edmonton, the downtown of Alberta's capital city, from where I park to our studio today. Saw somebody using drugs on the street right by where I park. Saw a pack of needles on the sidewalk right by our building when I walk in. This is a move in the wrong direction. Alberta-based country music superstar Corb Lund woke up at 3 a.m. to drive from southern Alberta to the capital city where we live less than 24 hours ago, and he's continuing his fight against coal exploration and coal mining in the eastern slopes of the Rockies down in southern Alberta in his neck of the woods. Corb's going to be joining us on the back nine of this episode to talk about that. And, of course, everything else continues amid the obfuscation that comes with the smoke and mirrors of all of this. Alberta is grabbing national headlines in all the wrong ways. Of course, Alberta's hoping for a big announcement with the feds as well on a new pipeline to the West Coast, which will reignite a fight with British Columbia, no doubt, as the premiers of those 2 provinces, David Eby and Danielle Smith, most certainly do not see eye to eye on that file. Oh, yeah, and then there's the federal budget and the rollout from that and everything else that's impacting families across the country. Are you able to keep up? We barely are, and it's our job. In this episode of the show, we're grateful to have you here. We're going to check in just a moment with the lone Green Party member of Parliament in Ottawa. She's the leader of the Green Party. She's one of the more familiar faces of any federal politician in Canada. Elizabeth May's vote carried a lot of power when that budget was voted on a short time ago, and she's going to explain to us what Mark Carney said, what the Prime Minister said to her to change her mind. She initially stomped on the budget, said that it was, quote, dead to her. So what changed there? We've got a lot to get to. We're going to wrap up today's show with emails from you. And I apologize to those of you who will not hear your flamethrower submission read today, because we have been flooded with feedback following that Bill 9, following it going public, following the use of the notwithstanding clause again. And we're going to get to what Real Talkers have to say about that in this episode that we're grateful to have you here for. This episode is happening with the presenting sponsorship of RapidX Financial. Real Talk is presented by RapidX Financial, which is a proud made-in-Alberta solution offering crypto, Bitcoin, your way through 3 easy channels. There's over 100 ATMs across Canada, RapidX ATMs. There's an online portal at rapidxfinancial.com with Interac e-transfer. And then there's an over-the-counter desk for those of you who are looking for a little extra help. You want to talk to a human being. With RapidX, you get real people ready to assist you, no hidden fees, and no chatbots. So whether you're starting from 0 sats or whether you're growing your Bitcoin journey, buying the dip right now, RapidX makes it fast, easy, and secure. Right now, Real Talkers who are visiting RapidX for the very first time will get 50% off with this exclusive coupon code. That's Ryan50, Ryan50, all one word, on the online portal at rapidxfinancial.com. Don't wait. This is a limited time offer. Your chance to start crypto your way with a made-in-Alberta company. Visit rapidxfinancial.com. Use Ryan50, Ryan50 at checkout. Act now and get off 0 sats today. We'll be jumping into our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power through this episode to get to what you have to say, how you're feeling about what you're seeing in the news. But let's get to one of the top stories on the federal budget, and that is the budget that barely passed. The budget that passed by 2 votes, 343 members of parliament, by the way, 2 votes passed with the assistance of the Green Party leader, with the member of parliament out of the West Coast, proudly Elizabeth May, who joins us now live on Real Talk. It's nice to see your face, and thanks for making time for us. Where do we find you today?
And I'm at my desk at my Parliament Hill office, and just going to dash off to the chamber pretty soon. But yeah, it's great to be on with you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your availability. Let's get right to it. You said that the budget was dead to you unless you saw changes. You stomped on it, and then you had a one-on-one with the Prime Minister, with Mark Carney. What did he say? Or no, take us into what happened.
Well, okay, yeah. And first of all, I just, it's not like a big edit on your intro, but I want to make sure listeners know.
Great.
The budget wouldn't have passed without cooperation from the Conservative Party,
Sure.
the New Democratic Party. And I didn't feel that, I'm not going to criticize anyone who decided that the right thing to do was to avoid an election and just not vote at all. But I wasn't prepared to do that. I read the budget November 4th and really found it horrible. I still think it's mostly horrible. But one of the things I said when I read it, and I right away went, we have these things called lockups. I won't get into the weeds, but if it sounds to a listener like punishment that I went into a lockup, it is. You have to go in there and read 400 pages under time limits quickly, not leave the room with a budget, et cetera. So you get to read it, think about it. And I had a team with me and I said, okay, there's no way we could ever vote for this. This is awful. And one of the things that made it awful as a Green was that it didn't mention at all the Paris Agreement, our legally binding targets. It didn't mention at all previous commitments that Canada had made to protecting nature and endangered species. And it didn't really at all emphasize that we need to protect ourselves from extreme weather events we can no longer avoid in order to save lives. I mean, we've been pushing for a national firefighter program. Anyway, I won't go into the details. There were things for me about the budget that were unacceptable because of what was missing. So it wasn't a one-on-one with the Prime Minister. It was like, okay, I made my position clear. I'm not going to vote for this unless there's changes, which meant I was hoping that they would actually change the written budget. You can do that right after a budget is tabled. In any case, we started negotiations right away, same day, November 4th. So what does it mean to negotiate with a federal government? Well, this government, I was persistent to try to figure out how you do that. So over the course of the time between November 4th, when the budget was tabled, and November 17th, when we voted, in that time, I had dozens of conversations. One personal chat with the Prime Minister. It wasn't organized as a meeting, it was more or less running into each other in the hallway and stopping and having a more substantive chat. In that moment, which was lucky, he gave me his personal email so I could send him the things I personally had sent to other people, all in and around the chain of command, talking to other ministers, particularly the Minister of Finance, who has a lot to do with the budget. So François-Philippe Champagne, the Minister of Canadian Identity, Stephen Guilbeault, the various members of the Prime Minister's group, the Chief of Staff and Deputy Chief of Staff, and individual Liberal members of Parliament, some at the levels of parliamentary secretaries, and so on and so on. But it was kind of an ongoing thing where we didn't just say. I'm sure that the Prime Minister's negotiations, for instance, with Daniel Smith, are better organized and have set meeting times and continue along a track. In my case, it was, where are we now? What can we do? Is there room for compromise? And I compromised a lot to get something in my hands that I felt could justify doing what I knew most of my constituents wanted me to do, which is another aspect of how Greens operate, is we listen to our constituents. And overwhelmingly, they were saying, for heaven's sake, if you have to hold your nose, vote for the budget. I was saying, I'm not going to vote for this budget unless I've got something substantial that I can live with myself. That's the other player in all this, is my conscience. So it was fascinating, right down to the wire, a real nail biter. I didn't know myself on Monday morning how I was going to vote, because the possibility of the Prime Minister standing up in Parliament and remedying the deficiencies in the budget by stating out loud his commitments, it wasn't a sure thing Monday morning. And even when he stood up to answer me, I didn't know what he would say. And I was just ticking the boxes in his answer and thinking, okay, that fixes that problem. But again, you don't walk away from a thing like that. I know we've got more to talk about, Ryan. I'll let you get a question in. But it was a fascinating process, and led me to a place I didn't think I would end up, which is in the end voting yes. And also the other element of all this was other parties were struggling to figure out which way the vote count was going. And I didn't want to leave my colleagues and friends in the Conservative Party or the New Democrats are wondering where the vote's going to be, because the other complexity, in a layer of complexity in the votes now, is that we have a thing called a voting app. And the voting app means that some members of Parliament are voting, and this is the voting app. You can see it says right now there is no vote, right? The voting app means some of my colleagues could be actually physically in the building in West Block, but not in their seats. And they could be, 10 feet away, planning to use their voting app. There were at least two Conservatives who did that, who ran at the last minute saying, wait. So the voting app.
You're talking about Andrew Scheer and Scott Reid, right?
Yeah. And I think what they did was pretty clever, actually, because it's so damn hard. In the old days before COVID, if you have a budget vote, any confidence vote, except the terrible 1979 event when Joe Clark's government fell. But generally on a confidence vote, you make sure you've got all your people there because you don't want to lose the vote. I mean, the Joe Clark, any of your listeners who are old enough to remember, and I know that's not most of your listeners, but everybody at the time said, oh, yeah, Joe Clark's government was the government that fell because they couldn't count. It was really clear going into that vote, they were going to a vote they were going to lose. This time around, the Liberals weren't hiding the fact that they didn't have the votes. And they were counting on things. I think they were counting on using a lot of pressure on Conservatives to cross the floor. And I think they thought they had more than they really did. And of course, I've got a lot of sympathy for the people who are the main players in all this, because for their personal lives and how much stress for really, really fine people like Chris D'Entremont or Matt Jenner. I've got a lot of friends at all the parties, and I care about them as people. And this was a rough patch for the amount of pressure being brought to bear on people. But the pathway to a minority parliament getting its budget passed usually involves talking to lots of people and saying, what can we do to fix this budget in ways that will let you vote for it? That wasn't the pathway that it seems to me the Liberals were using this time. They were counting on floor crossing. They were counting on the NDP being so worried about being put into an election that could wipe them out that they figured they would take a dive to avoid an election. In our case as Greens, we were ready for an election. Not that we wanted one, but it didn't scare us. We wouldn't have wiped us out. It might have, but I think we would have been okay with an election. It would have been pretty rotten for the Conservatives, and I think there were some people in the back room of the Liberal Party. I'm sure some of the backroom operatives were thinking, "Bring it on." Then we can get rid of this, 3 votes short of a majority, now 2 votes short of a majority with Chris D'Entremont crossing the floor. We have a majority government. Nobody can stop us. Anyway, a minority parliament requires cooperation, and we are, like, genetically, Greens have a gene for cooperation. We're more than willing to set aside differences and try to find compromises if it's in the interests of the country as we see it. I mean, everyone has their own different opinion, but you have to respect everybody and work from a place of respect and then try to compromise. So that's what we were doing for the last, November 4th to November 17th.
Thanks for taking us behind the scenes. People have always known you for, and I think respected your candor. Let me ask you, when you and you were not incorrect in editing my opening statement. It's true what you say, but I'm curious as to why you wanted to point that out. The budget passes by 2 votes. Let's say ostensibly you were one of them, but do you not want to be seen or portrayed as the person that had the potential to kill or pass the budget? Is it too much pressure? Would that be is that just not the look you're going for? Why did you clarify?
Just for honesty, we had a lot of angry phone calls into my office on Parliament Hill, and we had a lot of very wonderful thank you, thank you, thank you phone calls. The angry phone calls were, "It's your fault. We're going to have this massive deficit." And I'm thinking, if you're a traditional Conservative voter, you need to know that the Conservative Party backrooms around Pierre Poilievre didn't want an election. And for that reason, we didn't have an election. Now, I'm frankly grateful to them, too, for putting the interests of the country because, when the election, strangely enough, these changes to the Elections Act that I'm going to tell you about happened so long ago. It was when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister and Pierre Poilievre was the minister responsible for the Elections Act. So this was the so-called Fair Elections Act that Pierre Poilievre brought in gazillion years ago, 2012? But it requires that the election, there's a lot less flexibility. So when the government fell, I talked about when the government fell in 1979 under Joe Clark, minority Conservative government. The minority Liberal government that fell November of 2005 was the minority Liberal government of Paul Martin. And Paul Martin at that point, November 28th, when his government fell, went to the Governor General and said, "Look, can we pick an election date? Let's make sure that we don't have an election that falls over Christmas or Hanukkah. These are important sacred times for many Canadians." So they picked an election date, as you may recall, Ryan. It was 3 weeks into January. That was the only federal election campaign we ever had. And by the way, I wasn't even a member of a political party back then. I was working in an environmental group, and I was a lawyer, and I certainly wasn't running for anything, maybe running for cover. But anyway, in November 28th, 2005, when the government fell, Paul Martin was able to go to the Governor General and say, "Let's put the election 3 weeks into January." And as I was saying, that's the only election we ever had where we had 4 leaders' debates, 2 in English, 2 in French, and we voted. It was a long writ period, but it was specifically to avoid Christmas and Hanukkah. Under our new election rules, if the government had fallen on Monday, except for the possibility of a bunch of different parties going to the Governor General and saying, "Test the confidence of the House with us as a coalition," rather than going right to an election, that can work under our Westminster system. But if the government had fallen and we'd gone right into an election, by law, it would have had to have been held either December 26th or January 3rd.
Right.
So there are a lot of legitimate reasons, just in the interest of democracy. Imagine how low voter turnout would be. And imagine Elections Canada trying to hire workers for that period of time. I mean, my own volunteers wouldn't have been really happy. I mean, most of my volunteers are kind of like me, older and go to church on Christmas. So, you're like, what? So anyway,
We had
I
an
don't.
interesting debate on this, Elizabeth. As a matter of fact, on our show, I don't know if it was on your radar at all, but Alberta held its municipal elections on October 20th, which was right during Diwali. And there are some candidates, including those for whom that is a very sacred holiday, a significant religious or cultural celebration for them that were quite loud in their complaints around it.
That's great.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't avoid every moment, which is a religious event for some segment of the population. I'll take that as written. But my goodness gracious, I was very offended. That I mean, I shouldn't make too much of it. But I mean, I was upset that in the April election, we had advanced polls on Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and then Easter Monday. Like, Easter Monday isn't really a holiday of religious significance, but oh my goodness gracious, I had a lot of trouble, and I know Elections Canada had trouble getting poll workers who were willing to work on Good Friday and Holy Saturday, but that was by law, and strangely enough, again, back to the law that was put in place when Pierre Poilievre was the minister in charge of the Elections Act. I'm sure he'd like to change it now, but it gets hard. Sometimes in most years that's not going to happen. But when you pass a rigid law where you count the days out and you never know when an election is going to be triggered, despite the fact that we're supposed to have a fixed election date, remember that? Well, under the fixed election date, we would have had the federal election that happened in April, would have happened in October. In any case, we are where we are. We have the laws we've got. And if we can't figure out how to cooperate for Canadians, then we really fail all our constituents. So that's my view. When you end up with a minority parliament, it may not be, obviously, it's not what a voter who really wanted to see one party have 100% of the power. Frankly, as a matter of principle, and this is why Greens will always keep working for fair voting, one party should never have 100% of the power when they've gotten 30 to 40% of the vote. It's not democratic. But that, again, them's the cards we got. That's the system we've got now. And since Justin Trudeau didn't keep his famous promise that he made, like, how many, 4,000 times? 2015 will be the last election under first past the post. We're still operating under first past the post. We've got rigid election days, and they are fixed. Can you imagine what it would have been like to have a really critical federal election on December, a Boxing Day,
No,
or
it would have been insane.
January? Oh, yeah, exactly. Campaigning, knocking on people's doors through Christmas and Hanukkah. I like the Advent season. I don't want to be campaigning.
Nobody wants that. Literally, nobody wants that. So this budget passes.
I'm not sure. Some of the backroom Liberals might have liked it.
Why do you think?
Because they would have won a big majority, they think. Think about it. Who's weakened right now? Poor Pierre is right now going through a bad patch.
Do you really feel poor Pierre? Is that a sincere comment?
Yeah, because of course. Yeah.
Are you guys buddies?
Well, I like to think I like to think so, yeah.
Huh. That seems like an unlikely friendship. I don't know exactly why. It just seems unlikely.
Of course it's unlikely, but because that's based on the frame, which I wish Canadians could see how much different we are. We're all human beings. I've known Pierre. I mean, how many people can you say that? I've known Pierre since he was 24. Mm-hmm. Look at him. He's not a kid anymore. I've known him since his caucus nickname was Skippy. I sometimes say I've known him since he was a baby MP. I'm fond of him, but we don't agree on anything. Is that so hard to imagine? We don't agree on anything. Well, we do agree. He's got a great wife. And I was almost on their first date, but that's another completely different story.
We've got all the time in the world. I think your schedule is our only limit.
Anyway, no, I get along. So look at that, and then look at the NDP. Don Davies is interim leader. No party wants to go into an election with an interim leader, and they're $23 million in debt. So if you look through Parliament, the only party that could plausibly have secretly and very, very, very secretly been okay with it being an election if the budget failed, it would be the Liberals, because on the polling numbers, they would have a romp to a majority, which is what they want, because no political party, I'm not going to put this on the Liberals, the Conservatives, the Liberals, the Democrats, if they could, no political party wants less than 100% of the power. Greens, again, genetically, we're about cooperation. You look all around the world, there are 80 Green parties around the world. You find us in coalition governments. Like we put Jacinda Ardern in a coalition in New Zealand. We work in coalitions all around the world, especially in the countries, which are most of them, that don't have first past the post. So power sharing, that's all good with us. But most political parties, of course, in Canada have a back room full of people. I don't know why they want all the power because I'm not sure what they care about because I don't think they know either. What the backroom people, I'm not talking about the people we vote for who are brave enough to put their names on the ballot, but the backroom people want power for its own sake. They want as much power as possible. So, I mean, and it's just the nature of it. And I think politics and democracy, I think we'll put it this way, we have to rescue democracy from politics because politics is increasingly divisive, nasty, ugly, and makes people think that the whole system is so rigged, so corrupt. Why bother voting? And the answer is you've got to vote so that the system isn't rigged, corrupt, and disgusting.
Elizabeth May, MP of the Saanich Gulf Islands, Green Party leader, our guest in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Before we're out of time, I got to ask you a couple of specific things. This budget passes, and just days later, the Globe and Mail reports that it's believed that Ottawa and Alberta are close to a deal that would include a new oil pipeline to the West Coast. I have to imagine that's problematic for you, and I have to imagine that many of your constituents would expect major pushback to this. Where's your head at on that rumor?
Well, it's a rumor, so I have to stay calm because if I panicked at every hypothetical, every scoop that somebody gets, sometimes people float trial balloons. So let me just say, let's shoot that trial balloon down because it isn't going to happen. But let's talk about what's in the interest of the Alberta economy. Let's make sure that nothing that's done in this country leaves any part of the country out. And that's another reason to get rid of first past the post because you need to have more people elected in Alberta from other parties so that regardless of what party is forming government, you've got a good pool of members of parliament from every region and every part of the country. Our current voting system, first past the post, is ideal for regional splinter parties, which is how it could ever be the case that the Bloc Québécois, only running candidates in Quebec, was our official opposition, is the third party in Parliament and generally strong. And I have to say, individual Bloc MPs do good work for their constituents. I'm not criticizing their existence. But to be a truly national government, you should have people in a cabinet from all parts of Canada. And certainly if you're designing, and as I know the Prime Minister is, an economic strategy for economic sovereignty so that we can withstand the erratic and illegal behavior of the President of the United States in using illegal tariffs against our economy, we've got to be able to work together. So that means Alberta's interests have to be important to all Canadians. They're important to me. They don't necessarily, it doesn't mean you have to have a pipeline to meet Alberta's interests. There's lots of other ways to accommodate economic growth and prosperity in Alberta, just as there is for BC, Newfoundland and Labrador, Quebec. We are, and this is one place where I really agree with Mark Carney, the idea that we are so fragmented that we have 13 separate economies instead of one. Frankly, we're in the European Union that's 23 separate sovereign nation states with, I think, over 40 official languages, works better as a unit than one Canada, one federal government, 10 provinces, 3 territories, and we don't function. We don't have an interconnected electricity grid. The European Union does. How is this possible? We've really got to work together to eliminate these interprovincial trade barriers that cost our economy billions of dollars every year.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'd be curious to see how that actually manifests itself. Politicians have been talking about it forever.
Banging heads, but gently. My brother in Cape Breton always says, fight, 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 but be nice. So somebody's got to get all the premiers in the room, or maybe one at a time. But Brian Mulroney's approach, by the way, was always one at a time. This was how Brian Mulroney solved acid rain. He didn't bring everybody together so that you could say the person who's angriest and shouting the loudest gets veto power. He'd just say, we're going to negotiate separate agreements to reduce the pollution that causes acid rain. and one at a time until everybody was on board with cutting the pollution that caused acid rain in half. And then he went down to the White House. And of course, Ronald Reagan was a very different character to deal with than Donald Trump. But Mulroney was able to go to the United States and say, we've cut our pollution in half. Now you've got to do the same thing, or we're not going to solve this problem called acid rain, which is killing our rivers and lakes and forests. There's ways to do this, but as you said, we've been talking about it for ages. Why? How is it that we don't cooperate? Well, we have, relatively speaking, oh, even though the Constitution would have led you to expect we'd have a strong federal government and weak provinces, over time we've ended up with the opposite. We have strong provincial governments that exert their jurisdiction a lot and a relatively weak federal government. So the solution has to be sitting people down and working it out till you work it out. And it doesn't make sense to say that we're going to damage our own economy, keep shooting ourselves in the foot, because provincial governments regard themselves as somewhat independent fiefdoms that don't want to cooperate with the guy next door. Well, we're all neighbors, and if we don't work together, it's obvious, right? We're sabotaging our own economic health through idiotic approaches to, solidifying the provincial boundaries as if it's the Great Wall of China. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we're one country.
Let me ask you this in closing. Sure appreciate your time. We've been talking to Green Party leader Elizabeth May in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West in our live chat. Cliff says, but what did the Greens actually receive other than Mark Carney's conjecture regarding green initiatives? Let me rephrase the question. Cliff's question was fine, but I would say that, this government did terminate the consumer carbon price entirely. Carbon pricing has been central to green policy for a long time. But Carney did, on the record, publicly promise to respect Canada's Paris commitments. There's no legally binding mechanism in the budget to enforce that. So essentially, in closing, and perhaps most importantly, how will you hold this government accountable?
It's a minority parliament. I may be the leader of the smallest party in parliament, but there's a role for every MP in a minority parliament, every opposition MP. Our job is to hold the government to account. So up until Monday, Mark Carney, Prime Minister, had never said he was committed to achieving our Paris Agreement goals. He's now said, we'll respect the Paris Agreement and work to achieve its targets, respect the nature agenda, fund it, work with Indigenous nations for reconciliation. So what I feel I had in my hands at the moment he finished speaking in question period on Monday was the first ever commitment from Mark Carney as the Right Honorable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of this country. And I have found over the years that if you expect the best from people, if you expect honorable behavior, if you expect integrity, you're much more likely to get it than if you're cynical and think it doesn't matter a fig, they all lie. I have to believe really firmly in the inherent decency, which is why you can think it's unusual that I think Pierre Poilievre and I are friends. I don't think he denied. He might want to deny it, actually, but I don't think he will. You have to trust in people's basic integrity. We are all Canadians. We are all neighbors. We are family. And when my Prime Minister didn't vote, obviously, for that party, but he's my Prime Minister. And when he stands at the House of Commons, he makes basically a sacred pledge on the floor of the House of Commons that he is personally committed to this. My job is to hold him accountable for that, as well as rolling up our collective sleeves to say, okay, we're committed to it. There are barriers, there are concerns, there are interests to be respected, like those of Alberta, but I'm going to expect him to live up to that commitment and deliver on the targets by 2035, because there's one other sacred commitment I have, which is to my granddaughter who just turned 1. And by God, I'm not going to leave this mortal coil before I'm quite certain. Well, you can't promise that you're not going to die, but I'm going to do my level best to get things fixed for my granddaughter before she's old enough to find out how much trouble we're all in on this planet.
A lot of politics is personal, isn't it? I'll leave this with Explorer Hollis from our live chat powered by Park Power. It says, genuinely through all of this, I'm most impressed with Elizabeth May. Her ability to listen and work, to consider her constituents, and to vote her conscience is nice to see. And then Hollis gets in a little shot at a conservative and says, I wish I could say the same for Tim Uppel. Maybe that's personal too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing
Give
this.
Tim a break. We're all human. So that's all I can say about politics. The kind of the Punch and Judy show horror that people see on their news. Please, all Canadian citizens, please pray for us. Please believe we're human beings. Please expect the best of your MP and give them a break. We're all trying our best.
Thanks for doing this. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
You got it. That's the Member of Parliament of Sandwich Gulf Islands, leader of Canada's Greens, Elizabeth May. A few things there I didn't expect. What did you think, Real Talkers? Let us know. We'll get into our live chat powered by Park Power in just a moment. Corb Lund hanging out in our virtual green room. That guy put, by my math, about 1,000 K on his car yesterday, or however he got up to Edmonton from southern Alberta. He's about to tell us up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. He's all fired up. He has been for quite some time, ever since this show's inception. Corb's been on, I think, 3-4 times talking about his fight against Big Coal. Back now in southern Alberta before leaving for a tour. You know, he's one of Canada's most celebrated singer-songwriters. Fantastic. I'm going to call him a country music legend. The guy's fan base is just passionate about what he offers. But his advocacy has gleaned headlines as well, and we'll get to what he has to say. We talk a lot, by the way, about our live chat, and we do really appreciate those that make that possible, and that is our friends at Park Power. You can find them online at parkpower.ca, an exclusive discount for Real Talkers. If you're hearing about this or seeing it on YouTube, we're about to tell you how you can keep more money in your pocket. Park Power is your friendly local utilities provider online at parkpower.ca with low rates, awesome service, and profits that they share with Alberta charities. You can check out parkpower.ca/realtalk for exclusive promo codes on internet, electricity, and natural gas. You can save up to $150 off your first month with Park Power if you bundle all three services. That's parkpower.ca/realtalk. Winter is basically here. My 10-year-old reminded me it's not actually technically here yet, Dad, but your electricity, your natural gas use will likely be increasing, so it's a great time to look at your utility bills and shop around. Park Power has a ton of great options that are way cheaper than those big utility companies. Again, you'll find them online at parkpower.ca. Some amazing feedback to talk at ryanjesperson.com from Cora Lee. Says, Jespo, after listening to you rave about Friesen Brothers, I was excited to have an appointment in Fort Saskatchewan, right across the street from their location there. Says, I was blown away immediately by how clean and bright and organized the store was. Cora Lee says, we went down every aisle finding everything we needed. I loved how the store is set up. It's not just food, it's an experience. She says we picked up some pizzas, ready-baked pizzas for supper, never frozen, of course. And she says, and obviously we picked up some sourdough cinnamon buns. Says the pizza was amazing. Coralie, we told you. Says the dough doubled in size as it baked. Every bite, absolute heaven. She says I have a small addiction to cinnamon buns, so I've had them from a lot of places. The Friesen Brothers cinnamon buns, sourdough cinnamon buns were out of this world. So soft, baked to perfection. She says, I can't wait to go back and try everything else. She says, if Friesen Brothers is listening, Coralie, they are. She says, Northeast Alberta would love to have you. That from Coralie. We'll put in a good word for you, my friend. I know it's not technically Northeast Alberta. You can find them in Peace River. You can find them, of course, as you did in Fort Saskatchewan. 16 locations across the province. Friesen Brothers is Alberta grown and Alberta owned. Great to see our friends at Solar by Kubi. That's Kubi Renewable Energy at Edify's Top 40 Under 40 celebration just about 12 hours ago at the Winspear Center, downtown Edmonton. Congratulations to all the recipients. Our friends at Kubi were there sponsoring the attendance of first responders, which is absolutely fantastic, covering the cost of tickets to make sure that cops and firefighters, members of our military, were able to share in that celebration. And Kubi is recognizing first responders across Alberta and BC right now with their Powering Those Who Protect promotion. If you're a member of the military, if you're a 911 dispatcher, if you're involved in search and rescue, if you're a first responder in Western Canada, ask the team at Kubi about their Powering Those Who Protect promotion. It's 5% off right off the top of a solar power install a solar system, essentially, and that's on top of any other government incentives. You can ask the team all about those. Connect with Kubi today at kubi.ca. Our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce always have events locked and loaded, and that includes tomorrow. That's the 21st of November. The Edmonton Chamber's Coffee with the Chamber, presented by Morguard at the Rice Howard Place Tenant Lounge. You can learn more about it under the events link at edmontonchamber.com. This is bringing together Edmonton's business leaders, entrepreneurs for meaningful conversations and a little caffeine, sure. They're also going to have the Man Van there this time around, which is a great initiative, a mobile health clinic presented by Prostate Cancer Canada, promoting wellness in the business community. Tickets just $10 for Coffee with the Chamber, coming up Friday, November 21st. You can find more at edmontonchamber.com. And our friends at North Road Investment Council, of course, know that more private clients, institutions are asking the same question. That is, if most mutual funds aren't keeping up with the benchmark, why not just own the benchmark, right? At North Road Investment Council, they build customized passive portfolios designed to capture index returns while still respecting your values and your preferences. That means you can exclude companies you're connected to as an executive. You can avoid industries that you don't want in your portfolio, maybe guns, maybe tobacco, what have you. You can even design your holdings for greater tax efficiency. For families and institutions with around $2 million or more to invest, North Road creates fully customized factor portfolios within Canada and the United States. At North Road, they celebrate the fact that markets are competitive. You can reach out to their team today, Marshall, Carey, and the team at northroadic.com to learn more about how they can build your custom portfolio. All right, we'll roll in hot to this next interview because this fella's got a plane to catch. He's one of Canada's most recognizable singer-songwriters, obviously has a passionate fan base, and he is very passionate about protecting Alberta, in particular the eastern slopes, from coal exploration. Corb Lund joining us live on this episode of the show in a feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Nice to see your face again, pal. You logged like 800, 1,000 kilometers yesterday. Talk to us about why you were up at 3 in the morning.
I drove up to Elections Alberta in Edmonton from Lethbridge to apply for the petition for our citizens initiative to stop coal mining in the eastern slopes of the Rockies. We had been thinking about this for a while. I mean, as you know, I've been working on this for 5.5 years, and we're still. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. We're still fighting. Like the coal policy from Lougheed from the 70s that they rescinded back in 2020, we're still fighting to get that reinstated. And they're currently writing a new Orwellian policy called CIMI. It's the Coal Industry Modernization Initiative. And so far, my understanding is there's been no consultation with conservation folks or regular people or citizens. It's only been consultation with industry. And so that's coming down the pipe. And the same coal mine, Grassy Mountain in Crow's Nest Pass, that we've been fighting for 5 years, the feds shut them down. The provincial AER said it was not a viable project. They appealed it in court 2 or 3 times. The courts didn't hear their appeal, refused their appeal. Citizens don't want it. And they've given them another approved another application to explore, and they're going to be applying for a mining permit soon. So how many times do Albertans have to say no to the same mines over and over? And I've tried everything I can think of, and everyone that I know has tried everything we can think of. And I was sort of at my wit's end with this thing because the government just insists. I don't know why, if somebody's getting paid or if it's just ideological, but it makes no sense because the polling is very against these coal mines at the headwaters of our rivers. And anyway, I was kind of frustrated, and I went to a town hall meeting with some of the relevant ministers, government ministers, and the premier in Fort Macleod on June 11th. And the premier stood on stage and said, there was quite a bit of anti-coal sentiment in the room, and she said, if you folks don't want coal mining, you should start a citizens initiative. So I've been thinking about that ever since, and I put together a legal team and the beginnings of a very competent ground team, and that's what I did. I applied yesterday. So we wait for a week or so for the Elections Alberta people to approve it, and then we hit the ground running, signing up canvassers to go get signatures.
Corb, it's like it's easy to to get on board with something for 5 minutes. It's easy to send a tweet. It's easy to sign a petition that somebody else is organizing. It's not easy to stick with, or maybe it is, you tell me, to stick with something for like 5+ years, to advocate for it amid a busy, let's say, a musical touring schedule and everything else that you have going on in your life. You're driving all across the province for something that really doesn't benefit you in any professional sense. Like, why is this so personal to you? Why do you care so deeply about this to still be hammering away at it 5+ years in?
A few reasons. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've probably spent 35 or 40% of my productive time on this issue rather than music for the last 5-6 years. But number one, I spent my life growing up in the foothills around the mountains. And, my grandfather, he was a rancher, and he impressed upon me the importance of soil health and grass health, and the condition of the creek that runs through our property was the subject of conversation every single day. Like, how high is the creek? How muddy is the creek? How was it last year? And it was impressed upon me at a very young age, the importance of that stuff, water especially. And you're right, it's been a grind and it's been a lot of work, but honestly, and again, I've said this to you and to the public a million times, I'm not partisan. I don't like any of the parties. I don't care. I'm a one-issue public person. This is the only issue I speak about is coal. And I'm not talking about parties, but what I am talking about is the group of individuals that I've dealt with this issue on in government for the last 5 years, from the Kenney government to the current government, have been so dishonest with me and so disingenuous, and so have the coal companies, frankly. I've met with a bunch of their CEOs too. I've been deliberately misled so many times that I'm so pissed off, I'm not going anywhere. Like, these guys, I was shocked. Like, I haven't been involved in politics before this at all. And I was shocked at the level of A, incompetence, and B, dishonesty in government. And I don't just mean this party, I mean government generally. And I mean that. I'm not trying to spin this. I'm just shocked at, and I don't know if it's because the internet age has made it such an unappealing occupation to be a politician that we don't get the best people, but my God, it's appalling. Anyway, point is, I don't care about any of that. All I care about is keeping the water clean and the mountains intact.
When you say that, like, they're lying to you, you say like politicians are lying, coal companies are lying. What are they specific? What do you believe that they're specifically lying about?
Well, what's happened over and over is this whole time they hear the people screaming at them in the streets, right, with pitchforks, saying, we don't want coal mining in the Rockies. And they say, oh, we've heard you. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's the new rules or the new policy or the new proposal. And it's just bullshit. It's like they continue to pretend to fix it, but don't actually fix it. Like, all they're trying to do really is get people to shut up so they can continue grinding away in the background with the coal mines. And it's like, I've just seen this cycle so many times now, and I'm intimately familiar with this issue. And unfortunately, I'm more educated on it than some of the elected representatives, which is a bummer because I don't really do this for a living, and they should know more about it if they're making decisions. But the thing is, I just don't trust them anymore. There's no trust at all, because I've just been through the cycle so many times where they say, yeah, we've heard you, we're going to fix it, here you go, and it's not fixed, right? And that's why we have a lot of legal minds and people familiar with the issue who put together the question on our citizens initiative. It's very simple and it's very direct, and it's specifically worded to include Grassy Mountain in Crow's Nest Pass as well as any new coal mines in the eastern slopes. And we've worded it as simply yet as carefully as we can to eliminate government wiggle room. Because what everyone should be watching for is, A, do they try to carve Grassy Mountain out? Because Grassy Mountain is very important, because my impression and my gut is that mine is the first foot in the door, and it's kind of a bellwether. It's a canary in the coal mine, if you will. But if that one goes in, my prediction is that it will expand, and another one will go in, and another one will go in, and another one will go in, and pretty soon we're like the Elk Valley in BC. So to me, Grassy Mountain is a goal line stand. So that's something to watch for, to see if they try to wiggle out of. Like, I predict they may. I hope they don't, but I predict that one of the outcomes may be the government say, okay, we hear you, you're right, no new coal mines, except for Grassy Mountain, of course, because it's exempt for some arcane reason, right? The second thing to watch for is that, as I said, that they legislate this. Like, ideally, this won't go to a citizens initiative vote or a referendum. It will just the government has the option at any time just to write legislation that actually fixes the problem, and then there's no need for a referendum. But I predict that it's quite possible they may write legislation, but it's not sufficient. And we've been fighting this for so long and been around the merry-go-round so many times. We need the proper ironclad legislation. It's very simple. No new coal mines in the eastern slopes of the Rockies. It's, it's quite simple, and they make it complicated because it gives them wiggle room. But 70% of Albertans in poll after poll from all demographics, including conservative voters and rural people, do not want coal mines at the headwaters of our rivers in the eastern slopes.
I feel like 70. Well, I feel like 70. No, never end the rant, pal, ever. I find it hard to believe that 30% of Albertans do want coal mines near any water.
Yeah, the polling says that. My gut is it's less than that, because honestly, in all my years of doing this, I've never met anyone on the street who's A, not involved with the coal mines, or B, is from the Crow's Nest Pass who wants the jobs. Other than that small group of people, I've never met anyone who's been like, no, man, these coal mines are awesome. We need these coal. Like, it's just not an issue. And there's lots of issues that are 50-50 and people are passionate on both sides, but it's very hard to find anybody who's super stoked about coal mines in the Rockies. There's a few of them, but they're very few and far between. So I agree with you. I think,
like you said, I mean, unless you're an investor or you stand to benefit from it, or maybe you're an Australian billionaire, or if your granddaddy worked in coal and your daddy worked in coal and you want to work in coal and you want your kids to work in coal, I don't understand how anybody else would let me just jump into our live chat. Let me tell you what Real Talkers are saying right now. We're hanging out with Corb Lund, and we're going to be talking about his application for this petition in just a quick second, obviously, and how you can get involved, Real Talkers. In our live chat powered by Park Power, Peter says this is mountaintop removal mining and it's water intensive in an area of diminishing water resources. Ruth said this is not the correct location for a coal mine. Our watershed matters. Water will be more scarce, source-wise, going forward. White says corporations do try to get people upset with them just to shut them up so they can go about their business. That's 100% accurate. Dwayne says farmers, ranchers, trappers know that there is a huge importance around water. Water can't be compromised. Others are talking about slimy government. Matt says this 3,000 hectares we're talking about, Suncor slated. Oh, I think Matt's talking about a different project, Matt. Pardon me on that. Denise says clean water is the next, right? They'll use the notwithstanding clause for. I don't know about that. M. Aitken says no new industry in the eastern slopes. Alberta Girl says we have to stand up. Goramut says rant on, Corb, and keep up the great work. We've seen some petitions circulating, in particular that Forever Canadian petition, almost 500,000 signatures on it. Why a petition, and how do you believe it will be effective? It doesn't necessarily compel the government to do anything if they've not budged on coal now. What is it? Is it to build public awareness? What's your number one goal with it?
Yeah, well, my number one goal, obviously, is to stop coal mining permanently in the eastern slopes.
Right.
But my number one goal to achieve that goal is to educate the public, because I think that once I've seen it happen over and over and over, once people hear the facts and really dig into it, happened to me actually, they just come to the conclusion that it's a bad idea and it's not worth it and it's a huge mess for no money, and the coal isn't even that good. Anyway, most people who dig into this with a fair mind, open mind, realize it's a bad idea. And it doesn't mean you're anti-industry. It's just, not every project is a good idea. And this one is a terrible idea. So my main goal is like legislation is an outgrowth of my main goal. But my main goal is to educate the public to the point where the general sentiment in the province, it's just understood that nobody wants coal mines in the eastern slopes of the Rockies. And any politician who suggests it will be run out of town on a rail. Like, it just has to be part of I want it to become part of the provincial zeitgeist, is that just nobody wants coal mines, and every politician is wise enough to understand that that's a bad proposal. Like, getting legislation is good, but legislation can be changed. And, if another party comes in and puts in the legislation, that's a good step. But, the current party could remove it the next time they're in power. So what really needs to happen beyond legislation is that Albertans just have to understand and make their voices known that this is just a non-starter. The coal is part of our past, but it's not part of our future. And we just don't want coal mines at the headwaters of our goddamn drinking water in the Rockies.
Yeah, it seems obvious. Super Chat Ken makes a great point. Says, to be clear, you can support coal mining without supporting coal mines in the wrong place. Hollis says, I've been listening to Corb since Shine Up My Boots, since the video came out on CMT. Says, never have I listened so intently. So Corb, says Hollis, I'm going to sign up to collect signatures the moment that it's available. We've got other people like Bobby, for example, as well, that says, I grew up in a coal mining town. Everybody I knew worked in the coal mines, still does, but I agree with Corb and I will sign. How can people get involved with this? I mean, I know you're kind of at beginning stages, right? You were just at Elections Alberta, like, what was it, less than 24 hours ago?
Yeah. So the deal is, we were sort of, our hand was sort of forced on this. We wanted to be a bit more organized, but we started hearing rumors that it was possible the government might either pull the plug on this tool or make it so difficult that it's impossible to get the signatures or whatever. So we had an emergency sort of meeting and decided it was best for me to drive 6 hours and sign this thing up before the government changes the rules. So we're not quite as far along as we'd hoped to be when we launched this. But the next step is the Alberta elections people. Elections Alberta has to approve the petition.
Right.
And as soon as they approve the petition, we'll shortly after that, we'll have a website up. And here's what you can do. Like, the thing is, for 5 years, people have been saying, I agree with you. What can I do? And I'd say, like, write your MLA, which is sort of effective, but now we have something you can do. And what you can do is not only sign the petition, but become a canvasser to collect signatures. We want to get way more than 177,000. We want to get an overwhelming amount of signatures to send a message to the government that Albertans don't want coal mines in the Eastern Slopes. So yeah, spread the word, tell your friends, sign the petition, but most importantly, sign up to be a canvasser and tell all your friends to sign up to be canvassers and hit the ground and get Albertans to speak on this thing. This is a very concrete thing that people can do to help.
Okay, so basically, I mean, put it this way, like, and I know that you don't want to take this for granted. I mean, you have a huge following. You know that there's going to be people that are interested in this, and obviously we'll follow up on this as soon as it's ready to rock. You let us know. But I would imagine, I mean, this is the type of thing, this, like, it spans partisan boundaries. It spans geographical boundaries. It spans age demographics. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's, I think it's important to point out, like, Alberta ranchers in our chat talking about this as well. That's the handle that they're using and leaving their comments on this. There are farmers and ranchers and people that you never want to kind of like make assumptions, but just real talk. People that typically are in either conservative strongholds, politically speaking, or people that are typically hardwired to vote conservative and have done so for generations, that are super pissed off about this. For whatever reason, it hasn't really influenced election results in the province. I'll point out, maybe you have an idea on maybe why that is, but I would suggest that may not be the case forever.
Yeah. Thing is, like, there's a lot of issues that we have that are 50-50, and we'll be arguing about them till the end of time, and that's fine. But this is a solvable issue. Like, this is one that we could actually fix, because most people don't want this. And you're right. Typically, probably most left-leaning people would be against the coal mines, but that's the key thing about this issue is there's a lot of people who probably voted for the UCP that are not in favor of the coal mines. And I've said a million times, I'm not partisan. I don't care who you vote for. But I would say to the voters who vote for the Conservative Party, it's okay to criticize your people when they make a mistake, and they've made a mistake on this. It doesn't mean you have to abandon that. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I don't give a shit. But it's okay to self-criticize your own team when they've made a mistake, and that's what's happened here. So I think we can solve this. I think if we remain civil to our neighbors and remember that we all have different beliefs on things, but this is something that can be fixed because hardly anybody wants it. And I don't follow politics as closely as you probably do, Ryan, but I'm sort of baffled why. My understanding, and there wasn't a lot of love between the Smith camp and the Kenney camp. So it's baffling to me why Smith's organization didn't just leave this burning tire fire in Kenney's lap and say, you know what, they screwed this up. We don't want anything to do with coal in the Rockies. So that tells me that I've stayed up at night thinking about why on earth they're pushing this, because it's clearly not politically popular, and it's either got to be some combination of blind ideology or I'm going to preface this by saying it's my opinion because I don't want to be sued, but maybe somebody's getting paid. I don't know. And when I hear that people say that that's being exaggerative and hyperbolic, and I'm not sure, because one of the first persons that I talked to when I was researching this was the head of the Canadian coal lobby. He's the main lobbyist for the Canadian coal industry. His name's Robin Campbell.
Yeah, former environment minister in Alberta, by the way.
He went very quickly from the position of the environment minister to head of the coal lobby for the country. And I don't know how this works. This isn't my department. I don't know much about the inner workings of these things, but I do know that Premier Kenney now has some form of employment with Bennett Jones, which is the law firm that represents the coal companies against the Alberta public in these recent lawsuits. So when people say that, I don't know. I just don't see how you cannot see corruption like that as a possible factor. And I don't care. Frankly, this is not my area of expertise. All I care about is getting the coal mines out of the Rockies. But sign up to be a canvasser.
Would you ever enter politics? Has the crazy thought ever crossed your mind?
Absolutely, 1,000% not. I have no interest in it. I hate every second of this. I like you as a person.
Love you too, buddy.
I don't enjoy this process at all. I would much rather be playing music. And, I was accused of, at the beginning of this thing online, in the same day, I was accused as being so wealthy that I'm out of touch with working people, and B, simultaneously so broke from COVID that I'm taking money from George Soros. So unfortunately, neither is true. I'm a sixth-generation rural Albertan, and I just don't want the water screwed up and the mountains screwed up. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more complicated to it than that.
You and I have been talking about grabbing beers for a long time, and I want to let you know that Real Talkers are actually stocking our Real Talk beer fridge in real time by way of contributions to our YouTube Super Chat. So Super Chat Ken tosses us $5, says a few bucks for a toast to Corb, says, I realize it's only 1/10 of what I had to pay in coal settlements as a taxpayer, says Ken, but it's all I have today. You and I have spoken in past about settling with the coal companies and this government's pushback suggesting that it would cost Albertans, countless millions, if not billions, to tear up the agreements that they currently have. I know that you've been on the record with us on that in past. Ken K, different Ken, with $20 into the Super Chat, wants you to walk out with a cold case, Corb. Says Corb is an inspiration for rational Albertans to stand up. That's got to be good feedback to hear.
Give me some of the hard questions in the chat.
Well, there's someone in here, Mark Doran from the Polluter Pay Federation, says that you won't go on the record about the oil sands. That's a tough one.
Well, I have one issue, and I can't solve everything in the world, and I have lots of personal opinions about all kinds of issues, but I made a decision a long time ago. I'm going to try to fix one thing, and I don't want to broaden my message, because for 5.5 years I've had one thing I'm trying to fix. And if I broaden that message I've had people on all sides of the political spectrum try to recruit me for all kinds of stuff, and I have no interest in it. This is my part to play. I've got one issue. I'm not speaking about anything else. I'm trying to fix one thing, and I think it's fixable. But that's my approach, and I'm sticking to it.
Greg is in here talking about the type of coal that it is, metallurgical coal, right? And he's wondering, where was it? Gosh, Greg, I apologize, I can't find it. But he had said something along the lines of basically like, how are we going to build anything if we're not mining this coal, the coal that could be used for? Can you bring me up to speed? I'm not a coal expert either. You're way more into this, but this is coal used for steel, not to be burned for energy, correct? For electricity?
Yeah, I have an answer for that. Yes, this is metallurgical coal. It's used for steel, and that's totally correct. Number one, more and more, especially in Scandinavia, and I've heard also in China, they have new methods of making steel that are not using coal, and that's becoming more and more popular. Number two, this is really key, and this doesn't get talked about enough. This is a really key point. There's a guy named Cornelius, and I think it's Kohn. I have to look up his last name, but I've met with him a number of times. He's Dutch. He's a coal engineer. He's been in the coal engineering industry for 4 decades on 5 continents, and he's an expert on coal quality. He personally assessed the coal in the Eastern Slopes for Teck Mining in BC about a number of years ago to help them decide whether or not they wanted to get involved. And the coal is not quality metallurgical coal. And I was shocked because I thought it was the same seam. But he says, and he's an indisputable expert, he says that The coal in BC, in the Elk Valley, is probably 8 or 9 out of 10 in terms of its quality as metallurgical coal. The coal in the Eastern Slopes that he looked at, there were pockets of maybe 6 to 7 out of 10, but the bulk of it was 3 or 4 out of 10 in terms of quality for metallurgical coal. He says it's not even marketable. So if that's true, and I'm open to discussion on that, and I'd like to hear it backed up by other experts. But if that's true, what the hell are we doing? We're threatening our water and future generations' tax bill to clean this mess up, and having a strip mining in the mountains. For what? For coal that isn't even good enough to be marketed as metallurgical coal. So if that's true, if that piece is true, and I believe it is, this whole thing is a fool's errand for no reason, and it's exasperating. And I'll point out too that at that Fort McLeod town hall meeting, Cornelius, the Dutch coal engineer I'm speaking of, he got up to the mic and he explained all this. And he was talking to Mr. Jean, and Mr. Jean wasn't really paying attention to him, in my opinion. He was kind of blowing him off, and he was sort of shuffling him off to get the next speaker. And the premier stood up and said, "No, wait. What is your name? And what do you do? And who are you? And tell me this again." And it caught Premier Smith's attention, and they exchanged contacts. Like, she got his contact at that meeting, and I spoke to him after, and he said that he was shuttled off. Instead of talking to the premier, he was shuttled off to Brian Jean, and Brian Jean told him, "No, it's fine. Don't worry. We have experts on this." And he was like, "Frankly, with respect, I am an expert." And he's like, "Well, no, we got people on this. Don't worry about it." But according to this 40-year lifelong coal engineer, the coal is not even good enough for metallurgical purposes. So if that's true, like I said, what the hell are we doing?
I'll let Real Talkers know. I'm showing it right now. It was back on June 16th. You joined us with Cornelius Colgin, who you're talking about, as well as Dr. Bill Donahue. And this was after that town hall basically went sideways.
Right.
Obviously, people could
forgot. See. We were on the show. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that was June 16th. If people want to go back in our podcast archive, or they can check it out on our YouTube channel, we'll also link directly to that episode on the show notes for this one if people want to go check it out. Really obviously impressive commentary from people that know what they're talking about, expert opinions, which is, kind of the whole point of this show. So, great reference there. People can check it out. I know you got to get on a plane. Where are you off to? You're playing shows this weekend, Eastern Canada somewhere?
Yeah, I've got some Ontario stuff. Yep.
Okay, cool.
I've been running this coal thing from airports and hotel rooms and in the back of the van.
Unreal. Well, I respect the hustle, man. I respect the effort. We'll support what you're doing, obviously, and put it on people's radar. Where's the best place right now for someone that's listening to this and all fired up and they want to get involved? Like, what's the best thing for them to do right at this moment? Do you want to DM you on Instagram or something? Visit your website, corblund.com? What do you want?
Just for the next week or two before they approve the legislation or the application, start researching it. Just do it yourself on Google. Just start educating yourself about all the fines that have been levied for pollution and all the failed attempts to mitigate selenium and all of the BS around this issue. Just start educating yourself and form your own opinion. And then in a week or two, if you feel like we're on the right side of this, sign up to be a canvasser. It'll be very visible when the time comes. We'll do our best to get it out there, and I'm sure people will be able to find it.
All right, buddy, and we'll obviously keep the audience up to speed on that. Peter says right now at 9:39 Mountain Time, it's time to switch to whiskey. I've been drinking beer all day, so
amen.
Yeah, good to see you, brother. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks. See you around.
Yeah, you got it. That's Corb Lund, singer-songwriter, icon. I saw him referred to as in the chat, and of course the driving force behind a petition that we will talk to you more about. Thanks to Erin for $25 into the super chat. We sure appreciate that. That goes a long way, you guys, not just in keeping our lights on, keeping the show going, allowing us to do this, sort of weekdays through the week, but also just the wind in our sails. There's this children's book we love in our household, and it talked about filling your bucket, and you guys are filling our bucket. Feels like there's a water segue there. I won't try to be too cute on the coal front, but obviously a contentious issue. It's hard, and I know that Corb's kind of dancing around that carefully, and I don't blame him. People can be litigious, especially when you're talking about powerful politicians or former politicians and what may or may not be impacting policy or their decisions or their involvement on certain files. But I saw in here Boomshanker X, with what I think is pretty great feedback, who says, I like that Corb doesn't claim to be certain about things he's not certain about. And there's certainly some things that he definitely is certain about. I thought I was telling. Maybe it was a dumb question on my part where I say, like, what's your number one goal with the petition? Like, in other words, are you trying to force the premier's hand on something? Or are you trying to raise public awareness? He goes, well, my number one goal is to stop coal mining in the headwaters, stop coal mining in the eastern slopes. It's kind of a mind-boggling file, really, if you think about it. Politically very unpopular, environmentally destructive, economically negligible, with apologies to those that work in the industry. And I mean no disrespect to be like, hey, listen, I have worked in a dying industry, right? I hosted an AM radio talk show. I understand what it's like to be coming up in an industry that is in decline, right? I told you that when I started at Chorus, the stock was $12. When I was forced to sell my stock, when I was fired, I sold it $2.67, and it's 9 cents or less right now. I get it. People are being laid off and losing their jobs all over the place. There's talk about what the government can do to help mainstream media. I get it. The subsidy talk, the employment talk. I've been there. I didn't have dirt under my fingernails while I was doing it, but I've walked miles in the boots of understanding what it's like to feel like your employment and your family's security is being threatened. East Coast Stoner wondered how many people actually work in coal in Canada. East Coast Stoner was quick to clarify. They said, not me, I don't. Said, I'm a retired pot farmer. Shout out to all the retired pot farmers out there. According to the Canadian Centre for Energy Information and Statistics Canada, in 2024, there were 11,205 coal mining jobs, people employed directly in coal mining in Canada. In May 2025, that had dropped by 206 to 10,999. So call it 11,000 people employed directly in coal mining in Canada right now, approximately. Some estimates suggest the total direct and indirect employment to the industry could be as high as 42,000. So for context, again, this is according to the Canadian Centre for Energy Information and Statistics Canada. Coal mining accounts for about 10% of the total Canadian mining sector's workforce, which is about 105,000 employees, that number as of 2023. So interesting to know. So that's how many people you're talking about. 10,000 people, it's a lot of people. If they're all standing in an auditorium or if they're on the steps of the Alberta legislature demanding more access to coal mines, in the eastern slopes, 10,000 would be impressive. But when you look at the grand scheme, when you look at 5 million people in the province, about 40 million people across the country, when you take a look at what we believe the mandate of government should be, that includes, yes, economic development and also environmental protection. We had this Real Talk Roundtable, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago, talking about exactly that, energy, the economy, and jobs, right? Energy, the economy, the environment. This was the intersection that we were exploring, and I thought it was a great conversation. You can go back and check that out. That's the government's mandate. In this one, is it fair to say that, for all intents and purposes, it appears that the Alberta government, I'm not going to ask, is it fair, rhetorically or otherwise, is it fair to say? It's very fair to say that the Alberta government, under different premiers, is absolutely acting against the express wishes of a majority of Albertans. And that includes people that voted for MLAs representing this government. Am I wrong? Send me an email to talk@RyanJesperson. Let me know what you think. Now, it's been a bit of a bummer conversation right now, but it's not all bad, guys. And every Thursday, courtesy of our friends at Play Alberta, we have a chance to focus on a win. It's Alberta Wins, presented by Play Alberta. This is our opportunity to share stories of Albertans on the national or international stage that are making a big impact and experiencing big wins. And that's exactly what Russell Bird, Ron Yanita, and Brian Jerebic have done, bringing home a major international victory, taking first place in the potato category with a perfect score, you guys, a perfect score at the prestigious American Royal World Series of Barbecue in the Mecca of barbecue. That's Kansas City. This is the largest barbecue competition on planet Earth. They call it literally the Super Bowl of BBQ. The American Royal attracts more than 400 teams from around the world. And this year, this Alberta-based team, they call it You Need a Barbecue. We've been proud to partner with them in past, They not only won the potato category, but they were also named the International Reserve Grand Champion, securing the highest overall finish that was ever achieved by the team. So their award-winning recipe features a warm, fondant-style potato dish. These are Little Potato Company creamer potatoes. That's another proud Alberta brand, by the way. Fire-roasted corn, smoked bacon, chives, OG ghee, and Unida's signature seasonings. It stood out among elite competitors, earning a perfect 180 score, which is a really rare competition score, so says Russell. Russell's the CEO and operating partner of You Need a Barbecue, proudly based out of Sherwood Park, says we're incredibly proud to represent Edmonton. There's Russell right there. Edmonton and Sherwood Park on the world stage, says this dish is truly something special, and earning a perfect score at the American Royal is a dream for competitive pitmasters. Congratulations to the team at You Need a Barbecue for a perfect score at the Super Bowl of BBQ in Kansas City, proudly representing our home province of Alberta. Albertans are winning every single day at playalberta.ca and via the Play Alberta app. And with casino winners every hour, jackpots worth millions, and revenue that stays in the province, there's never been a better time to sign up. Right now, Real Talkers can score a $50 casino bonus when you make a minimum $50 deposit with the code Ryan50. That's Ryan50 for a $50 casino bonus. You must be 18 or over to play, and if you do gamble, please use your game sense. Play Alberta, proudly presenting Alberta Wins Weekly on Real Talk. We'd love to hear your stories of Alberta Wins. You can email them anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Johnny Hicks, the intrepid producer of this show, doing an incredible job pulling it all together. The Elizabeth May interview confirmed on very short notice. It was nice to check in with her. Were you a little surprised to hear her thoughts on Pierre Poilievre? She talked about baby Poilievre, remembering when they used to call him Skippy. Yeah. She brought something kind of unique to the table today. I was snickering, and I love it, when a guest does this, because they're just on a stream of consciousness. It's never something I'd complain about as an interviewer, but I think she just went out of the gates for 6 minutes, uninterrupted, just taking us behind the scenes of how her budget vote played out. Kind of interesting to hear that stuff.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Coal mining in the Eastern Slopes, something that's going to get people all fired up. I understand Tracy right now in our live chat says, now I want potatoes. I get it. And I also understand where Erin's coming from, where she says, I'm angry today and I'm trying not to be. Erin, I'm feeling the same thing. When I walked into the studio today, to be quite honest with you, I was pissed off. I was pissed off about what I'm hearing. I'm pissed off about what I'm seeing. And I knew that I was going to be in front of this microphone talking to all of you about things that I know that you're pissed off about. And I guess at the end of the day, we kind of want the takeaway to be that, we can get pissed off about things, but it's not in our best interest to walk around angry in the red zone all the time, right? And I think that a lot of people are going to be wondering sort of what you can do from here. You hear that the supervised consumption site for inpatients at the Royal Alexandra Hospital is closed, and we can draw a direct line to know that exactly, we know exactly where this is going. We know that people who use drugs are going to leave the hospital to continue to use drugs because they're experiencing addiction to drugs, which is why they're in the hospital in the first place. And what happens when people leave medically supervised facilities to go use drugs on their own? In many circumstances, there's a reason why there's an opioid crisis in Canada. We know that they will overdose. They'll experience a drug poisoning. And we have it from reliable sources within the Real Talk community that healthcare workers have already been instructed that they must not assist or supervise use of drugs by any patient at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. Now, there has been inpatient supports there by way of a supervised consumption service for quite some time after they were discovering people experiencing addiction and using drugs in things like stairwells or parkades or stepping outside. And they realize that A, this is uncivilized, and B, that people are overdosing, experiencing drug poisoning, and in some cases dying. Look at the numbers across the country. And so what did they do? Based on medical expertise and based on informed opinions and evidence, they opened this inpatient supervised consumption service. This government believes, and this is my paraphrase of what the message is, the bullshit message, is that it flies in the face, my paraphrase, it flies in the face of the ideological bent that this government has on recovery. They want to force people into recovery. And, of course, that means that supervised consumption in layperson language, like we see in the live chat and like I know I'll see in emails that we're getting, they don't want people shooting up, using illegal drugs with the blessing of the government, utilizing government resources, and so they're not going to allow it. And I guess in some way, they're hoping that every single person who's experiencing addiction, every single person that's using drugs, every single person that's hooked right now on opioids is going to have a come to Jesus moment when they realize that the supervised consumption services no longer exist and that now they're going to have to enter recovery. That's because that's what the government wants them to do. That's what the premier and the health minister want them to do. That's what the UCP cabinet wants them to do. So I'm sure that all of these people will change everything that they've been doing. I'm sure that the opioid crisis will cease to be an issue in Alberta, as it has already, right? We're looking at the numbers right now. Guess what, guys? They're not down. And so people will say, well, if it's not down, if we're not seeing a decrease in the issue, then why are we going to keep doing what we're doing? It's a fair point. It's a good point. And we've talked about this on the show in past, about a holistic approach to all of this that does include detox, that does include recovery resources. They're very important. But to eliminate, to defund and get rid of the first point of contact for so many people, that human contact with a healthcare professional who can, yes, employ naloxone to reverse an overdose and save a life, but also build a relationship and create networks and create opportunities, open doors within the healthcare community. To get rid of that makes absolutely no sense. I'm fired up about it. It was like the universe put this person, and I'm not speaking in a denigrating fashion about this person, but the person that was 30 feet from my vehicle when I parked to come into the show to talk to you today, that was using drugs at 7:30 in the morning. Time doesn't matter. I'm painting a picture. It fired me up to walk half a block further and to see syringes in packages, but syringes on the ground in the middle of the sidewalk. It fires me up. I come in here with fire in my belly. And then we're talking about coal. And then we're talking about AUPE members, LPNs, nurses going on strike on Saturday unless something happens. We're talking about our conversation yesterday with Dr. Glynis Lieb and Anna Murphy about the UCP government invoking the notwithstanding clause to protect trans laws from court challenges. There's a lot of reason to be really super pissed off right now, but we want to remind you that you can take action. And I know that Corb said that, you can write your MLA, and he kind of went, it doesn't always work, but whatever. And I remember, you may remember, if you're a longtime member of this viewing audience, that I made some comments actually that I regretted a couple of years ago when I basically lazily muttered that writing your MLA doesn't do shit, because I know that a lot of people feel that way. And to a certain degree, and I hate to say it, but it is true, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. We asked you, in our most recent episode on the 19th, we asked you to CC us on your emails to the premier, on your emails to ministers, on your emails to your MLAs, and boy, have you ever. And our Flamethrower, a little bit later on in this episode, is going to include some of those emails. They were not written to us. We were CC'd on them. They're written to the premier. They're written to cabinet ministers. But keep the pressure on. Whatever it is that's lighting the fire in your belly today, whatever the bee in your bonnet, or in honor of Corb, the burr under your saddle, whatever it is that's firing you up, do something about it. Find a way to get involved. Take action. This is an active audience. This is an audience that acts with intent, and we know you can do it. Touring Zebra sent us an email following our show on the 19th of November, our most recent, and said, I wrote again yesterday to our premier regarding this anti-trans legislation, and while I do not expect a satisfactory response, I've made my concerns known once more. Says, I'm writing in to just say I appreciate Real Talk's public and visible advocacy for the queer community. Where I live, it's very uncommon to see or hear people advocate for the LGBTQ2S+ community, to the extent that when this legislation was first discussed a year ago, it was not even touched on. It was not even discussed at all at our school district office meetings. I expressed my frustration in an email to all my fellow principals, assistant principals, and district leaders before last Christmas break and had 2 reply alls in support from 2 other principals and no response from any of the district leadership. Touring Zebra says, I know you don't speak out because it gets ratings or views, but because it's the right thing to do. So thank you. Well, thank you for the email. Although we'll never turn down ratings and views, Johnny. We appreciate those as well. Ratings and views can help us out. Not all bad. We're looking forward. We'll let people know we're going to be rolling into the Flamethrower here in just a quick second. But we are, I'm off working on something else on the 21st of November. That would be our next episode on the Friday. So there will not be an episode of Real Talk on the Friday. Encourage you to go back in our archives and check them out. And then we're both very excited about what's coming up on Monday. Our good pal Supriya Dwivedi, as she does every Monday, will be joining us, but live in studio.
Yeah, it's a nice change. Can't wait to see her.
Yeah, how's your weekend looking?
Good. Busy, yeah.
What's going on?
Gonna be DJing a few events. We got our Christmas party.
Yeah,
Lots of stuff.
Good stuff. Well, you're very talkative today, John. Very
What do you mean?
today.
Well, I was going to talk about the Elizabeth May, but you asked me like 4 questions over top of each other. I wasn't sure what you wanted me to comment on.
What did you think about the Elizabeth May thing?
I thought it was. I think people paint her as some wild activist, and a lot of what she says is pretty common sense to most people. It may not be your cup of tea, but. And then I think you asked me like how her and Pierre kind of are not chummy, but I think that just happens. Like especially when you work with someone every day. I heard someone say the other day, we're doing it more often in this day and age where we don't pick people we don't like to work with. But I think that's avoiding people with different opinions and from different walks of life, because here you have 2 people who clearly, like Elizabeth and Pierre, have nothing they agree on.
Nothing.
She probably thinks he's quite annoying day to day. But when you work with someone and see them come of age and see them grow and see them go from, Skippy, as she says, to leader of the opposition. I mean, she said she has, what was the word she used? She says, I have not affection for him, but like how can you not? You see someone day in and day out at the office, at the house, wherever it is. But I think it's good to surround yourself with people with different opinions. And I thought that was a great example how like clearly day to day, like you could hear her responding to him in the house being like, you're an idiot about this. Not saying you're an idiot, but you know what I mean? And they still got to work together, right? They still got to respect each other.
I totally agree. It's like when she kind of alluded to this as well. I don't think she used the word theater, but we see a lot of politicians like really hammering away at each other. And at the end of the day, to understand that it's different in real life, like when they're corresponding and that they maybe to a certain degree or maybe to a great degree, some of them care about each other's families. I mean, she made a very nice comment about his wife, Pierre Poilievre's wife.
She said that's the best thing about him. But I think this is the way it is with everyone. Like people online I don't want to use the word have balls or whatever. Like you're a lot less courageous in person when you have to shake someone's hand, when you have to sit in a meeting, when you have to debate them, when you have to walk into a government building with them 5 days a week for 6 to 7 months out of the year. It changes everything. I think eye to eye, and that's the one thing when we're talking about like work from home and everything, I don't mind augmented like 2 days at home, whatever. But I do believe there's a lot of positive in going to a workplace every day, seeing people, especially ones you don't agree with, and having to facilitate a conversation and having to, I'm not saying you have to like, take everything they say, that you have to like, conform, but like, if you just keep yourself in a bubble, like, and I thought that was so funny how she said, she's like, I'm going to go back and see exactly what she said, but she basically says like she has affection for him. How do you not when you see a guy become like a teenager all the way to the leader of the opposition? And then the other thing I thought was good, how she was, I guess we're talking about energy transition and all the stuff, clearly she's not happy with the budget. And I also saw a great reel. I should have pulled it today, but I'll pull it for Monday, and her talking about what our guest yesterday, Arno, was talking about with the oil tankers.
Arno Kopecky,
and she was talking about some stuff that we didn't even talk about how that body of water that they're thinking of putting tankers in is like, it's very dangerous. It's like the fourth most dangerous length of water in the world or something like
Really?
that.
Like for shipwrecks and
Yeah,
stuff
like the tides get so high that sometimes, like in really dangerous tides, you can see the bottom of the sea floor and stuff like that. I don't know. I'll have to pull the reel because I don't want to misquote her. But I thought this was right outside the house too, and she was saying that was one of the main reasons, like, this is never going to happen. And I thought it was just a great quote. But
yeah,
I think,
was her pipeline comments were really interesting. Hey, like she was talking about like the trial balloon, and that she says sometimes people will float the trial balloon, and then I think her exact words were, "So let's shoot down that trial balloon because it's not going to happen."
Well, look, we need to transition, right? We need lots of forms of energy, and I'm not one to say we don't need oil, we don't need nuclear, we don't need a little bit of coal. There's still coal around us too, like Corb was just on, but there is. But like we've changed, we've augmented. Why is acid rain not a problem anymore? Because coal plants have scrubbers now. There's less coal mines. Cars are cleaner, et cetera, et cetera. Why is there no hole in the ozone, or it's much smaller than it was before? Because the world banned CFCs. We all got on the same boat and said we're not going to do this. Is it gone? No, but it's much reduced, right? So it's the same thing with climate change. I mean, like, we're not saying get rid of everything. We're not saying shut every drill, block every pipeline.
Not even close.
We're saying let's get diverse in our energy. We don't need to just pull from the same pie all the time.
Totally agree, dude. Totally agree. Boomshanker X, thanks for your YouTube channel membership. We appreciate you. Says everybody has an ideology. The problem is being too attached to it. I feel like that should be on a T-shirt. We'll give you credit if we do it. I totally agree. M. Aiken says we have supervised consumption sites everywhere. They're called bars. She says alcohol is used and sold in consumption sites called liquor stores and bars. Yeah, but M. Aiken, alcohol doesn't really contribute to any ills in society, does it? Like it doesn't. It's not like a main issue with like liver disease, heart disease,
domestic
strokes,
abuse,
drunk driving, domestic violence, right? Steph M. Earmuffs Kids says the UCP is fucking up this province. Says, sorry for my swears. I've been pissed off all week. I get it, Steph. I get it. Les says, yeah, Jespo was a little rattled out of the gates today. I was. Says he was a little shook up. I was. Real. I'm just being real with you guys. Kenzie says, why do you... Here I go. Right as my blood pressure just returned. This is like, if I had a cardiologist, they would tell me to don't do this. Because I'm about to get up to 200 beats a minute again in the Flamethrower presented by the DQs in Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. But Kenzie says, why do you want drug addicts hanging out around a hospital where vulnerable sick people are? Because the drug addicts are vulnerable sick people! For fuck's sakes! Sorry to get fired up on this, but is that a serious question? Is that a serious question? Are you just trying to get my goat?
This is the
Why do we want them in hospitals? Where else should they be? Like, honestly. Like, they're not going to be laying next to your mom in the psych ward or whatever. I'm not taking a specific shot at you, Kenzie. I'm just saying that there are... it's unbelievable to me how people can disconnect from the opioid crisis because they believe that it's not them or someone that they love, or they believe that the human life that is impacted is disposable. That's honestly what it is, right? People are going to use words. They don't want us using these words anymore. Let's use them. You have friends that use these words. They're going to talk about junkies. They're going to talk about people that have made their own decision and they can live with the consequences. They're like, how do you think addiction happens? Like, do we honestly have to get back to like the kindergarten version of understanding the impact of things like trauma and sexual assault and generational trauma and residential schools and poverty and surgical delays that leave people on high-powered painkillers for 18 months waiting for new hips and knees and everything else? Like, at what point does a human life lose value to you to where you start to question somebody experiencing some of the most horrific conditions that you could possibly imagine, trapped in their own body, which has been polluted by addiction, and suggesting that they should not have access to healthcare resources, including hospitals? Like, how can you honestly type something like that in a live chat? It drives me insane to hear comments like that. It's because we believe that some lives, Johnny, are worth less than others.
100%. This is the stigma that people have. And I see people every day when I come to work. You know, I didn't want to tell this story because I saw it last week on Friday, and I was like, maybe I'll bring it up sometime. But I'm walking to work, and there's a guy. It's like the first cold day in the winter so far, and he's laying there on the street, man, and there's a bottle of water poured out on the street, and it's like freezing. It's like ice. I mean, it's not winter yet here in Edmonton, but in the mornings it's below zero, right? And I just looking around, and people are walking by him, and I just kind of kneeled down and was like, "Hey, buddy, you okay?" And he just kind of snapped out of it and started to rustle up and go away. But it's funny that like some people just like this guy could literally be dying on the street, and people are just walking by going to work. Man, they don't care. They think he's a piece of trash.
It's 100% true. Kenzie says, stop. You have entirely missed the point and assumed I don't give a shit. What did I miss the point about me asking why addicts should be in hospitals around sick, vulnerable people? What part of that insightful comment did I miss? Steph says, or rather Christy says, it's the best thing she's ever heard me say, make it a short. Maybe we will, but we've got stiff competition today from Elizabeth May and Corb Lund, who I think definitely need to have their messages heard as well, but we'll see what we can do. You know, it's honestly, it's tough. You know, just like this is a great problem to have, I guess, if you're in the talk show business, to sound cynical for a second, that we have too many things to talk about, that Rome is burning, and that we're doing everything we can to do justice to every single story. You know, there's stories that we haven't even touched this week that we 100% should, but we're just running out of time. I appreciate the audience putting this on our radar. Les says, Jespo, you need to go step out and smoke a joint. M. Aiken says, Ryan, you need to breathe. Perhaps I will. Isn't it a nice luxury?
Screw drug addicts, but Ryan, go do some drugs.
Isn't it a wonderful luxury that the substance that I choose to enjoy, which is cannabis, is completely legal, and I can step out on the street and I can smoke it if I like, although I don't prefer to smoke it, and that no one will, or very few people will judge me for it, John, and I can go about my business and I'll still be respected as a professional and as a taxpayer and as a father of two boys, and really nobody's going to shit on me. But if it was a different drug that I went to, it'd be a different story.
It's not a popular opinion, but I mean, things will be a lot easier in society. There'd be a lot less crime if most or not if all the illegal substances were regulated and controlled and available to adults who wanted to indulge in them. And we're kind of getting there with some of the stuff that you know is still kind of like not grown in the ground. Everything comes from plants for all the way up the list of drugs. But you know, we're talking about mushrooms and marijuana, etc. But like, I mean, even the mafia was literally created because they banned alcohol. Prohibition.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just, it creates so many more problems when you try to isolate people and you try to make drug addicts seem like they're the bents of society, when they're just sick people, man. And most likely they've got some kind of trauma. They lost a job. They lost a loved one. They didn't have a nice family structure at home. There's something. Nobody just wakes up one day and says, you know what, I'm going to try crack cocaine today and just lose my job and lose my partner and all my savings and just whatever. And there's all sorts of reasons that you turn to it. But that's what I think when I see someone. And I know that's not always the case. I know there are people out there who just don't give a shit and they would rather just be high all the time. But when I look at someone, I think, like, why are they here? Why is this guy lying on the road? What led him to this? And like, everybody, I think, has a chance, I think, in society, other than I've talked about people who abuse women and animals. Other than that, like pedophiles and serial killers, like, I believe everyone has a chance to turn it around. And saying that, that was just wild. Keep the drug addicts away from sick people. God damn it, they are the sick people.
I want to be fair in this conversation. Kenzie's following up with another comment. I always do my best, you guys know, to read the follow-up. I'm not doing this for clicks, and I'm not trying to dogpile on Kenzie. Says, you know, you can be in the hospital for treatment. Yeah, sure. But hanging out using illegal drugs is not okay. Expecting nurses to treat people smoking crack. I mean, number one, you're not smoking crack in a supervised consumption site. But number two, like, it's a medical facility. It's a clean medical. Google it. If you don't understand what they are or how they work, I mean, I feel like you can only talk about it. So I'll keep talking about it. But like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. And I think a lot of people don't want to get it or choose not to get it. Matt says, for what it's worth, I support safe consumption sites, but they are also building in Alberta 11 recovery communities, some which are already open for voluntary treatment. He says, I'm not saying it's enough. I'm just putting on the record what they're doing. Matt's correct. And like I said, I'm not like, never take, you know, people will create this kind of false narrative for you, and they'll want you to pick or choose, right? Like you either support this or this. Like, this is the approach you support, or this. And it's like either going to be supervised consumption, or we want to call it, like, people will phrase it in a different way. Like, you know, people shooting up free drugs and lawlessness and this. Okay. You either support that or you support detox and recovery resources. Why would you ever have to choose between that? Doesn't it all make sense? Don't we want every single evidence-based approach at the disposal of people who are motivated to kick the addiction, to get back to a healthy lifestyle, to start their reintegration into, right? I mean,
there's always going to be houseless people. There's always going to be people addicted to drugs. But I think when people have no empathy, no compassion, I just look at them again and say, what brought them to this opinion? Maybe they don't have anyone in their family who has battled alcohol addiction, although I think we all know someone who's done that, or who has battled a painkiller addiction, or has been addicted to drugs, or experienced houselessness. But once you meet someone and know someone who, and you're close to them, you see how it takes a hold of people, how you're almost like a slave to it, and you really want to try and help them get off that. But it's just this whole, like, someone else was talking on a talk show about how there was this idea to like move the treatment centers and the safe injection sites out to the rural areas. And then when it gets cold, bus the houseless people who are addicted to drugs out to these like
sounds like a Ralph
centers,
Klein solution. And
then they wouldn't be, it's freezing cold. They can't walk 2 miles back to the city. And I was like, this is like, we're talking about concentration camps are better than just getting people help where they're at, right? And I know this is all getting bigger and more in your face. I know Real Talkers like, man, I'm downtown every day. I'm not saying downtown is perfect, but there's more people coming here. There's more people fighting for jobs. There's a housing crisis. There's a cost of living crisis. So there's just more of these people around, but that doesn't mean like that they're garbage. You know what I mean? That they should be just thrown out,
Totally. Dan in our live chat powered by Park Power says most people, that we're supposed to remember to never forget. I think he's talking about Canadian veterans. Says have been addicts when they come home. We know that like they're, look at the Legion.
Physical pain they're in, mental.
The Legion, people talk about like the Legion is, we need to do a whole show on legions, the phenomenon of legions across the country. Some of them are kind of dying out. Others are going strong. If you're ever in Jasper, I recommend you check out the Jasper Legion. It's a phenomenal place. Don't wear a hat in there like I did. They'll let you know right away. But we need to talk about like legions have been like safe places for people, but they've also been places where people that didn't even understand what they were experiencing from a mental health standpoint, like PTSD or whatever, whatever it was, they call it like shell shock or got my bell rung, whatever it was, using alcohol to treat it because and even if sometimes I don't even think you realize, I'm not an expert in this, guys. This is just a layperson's opinion. This is just some asshole with a microphone, but like, a lot of people don't even understand that they're dealing with trauma. A lot of people don't. 100%. They don't understand that they're self-medicating. Yeah, they're not intentionally. Until it's too late. Right?
Kenzie says in our chat right now, when you can tell me we should give alcohol to alcoholics, I will accept. Kenzie, we do that every day. Most people go into bars, and that's how they relax, and that's how they treat trauma, and that's how they avoid therapy, and we let people do it. And now we're letting people do it with marijuana and like psilocybins, but we treat this one section of addicts like they're different. They're not.
We also don't have poisoned alcohol supply. We don't have like what's the average? Like I'll just Google this on the fly, but like Alberta opioid deaths 2024. That'll be the most recent numbers that we have, right? So decrease in deaths did not occur in all regions of Canada 2024, which is good news. The following provinces and territories experienced reported declines in opioid toxicity deaths. BC, look, Alberta's numbers are wild, but part of me believes that maybe we're not reporting it because it's a dramatic decrease. But BC, a 12% decrease from 2,600 deaths in 2016. Let me not forget the 16. That's 16 human beings. That's 16 sons and daughters. 2,616 deaths in 2023. 2,229 in 2024. I know that's a lot of numbers I'm throwing at you, especially if you're listening on the podcast. If your brain works like me, that doesn't help you out at all. But let's say basically 2,200 plus deaths in BC alone last year just from opioid. Alberta experienced a decrease, a horrific number, 1,870 if you look adjusted for population to BC, 1,870 in 2023 to 1,181 in 2024. So 1,200 people, 1,200, so 100 people, so you call it 25, so call it like during weekdays, you could say 4 people a day. 4 people a day in Alberta dying from opioid deaths. I guess I was going to ask, are 4 people a day dying from alcohol? 4 people a day probably are dying from alcohol, as a matter of fact, but not from poisoned alcohol. I think that's one of the reasons why you got to treat it differently. And I know that a lot of people, it's like they'll shift the goalposts. We're seeing it a little bit right now. They'll shift the goalposts and go from like, well, supervised consumption, but free drugs. And it's like, well, hang on a second. Now we're talking about safe supply, which is also part of a holistic approach to it. I understand why some people really have an issue with that, with supplying opioids, supplying drugs to people who use drugs. You talk to the experts on this. That's why we do this. That's why, we're going to cut all this out of the podcast. None of this will be in the, no, I'm just fucking around. But it's why don't listen to what I have to say about this, right? Like listen to what the experts have to say about it. Like do your own research. I know that people will send the SpongeBob SquarePants, like do your own I do my own research, but actually in good faith, read up on it. Read up about the argument for safe supply. I believe that there are also different initiatives, different programs, different steps that people can get on board with, and they may push back on others. We saw that yesterday with a comment. I don't remember who it was. Was it Emily or Erica or someone wrote in and said, on the UCP's trans laws, and they said, on the notwithstanding clause, they said, like, I agree with two of them. I don't agree with one of them. I appreciate a comment like that where someone says, yeah, I see some nuance. Like I'm okay with this. I'm not okay with this. You can support supervised consumption and maybe not support the idea of safe supply. I'm happy to have that debate all day long. But let's bring the debate back at the end of the day to what Johnny just pointed out, which is that people's lives have value. That's not something that we need to debate about, and it's not something I will debate. Christine, thanks for $25 into the super chat. Sure appreciate it.
Hey.
She says, people addicted to drugs have life-threatening disease. Be kind. She says, thanks for expressing your compassion. Says, I work in this field. That from Christine. Thank you for your work, Christine. She says, I've never met anybody addicted who hasn't experienced severe trauma. She says, you care. Every life matters. I agree with her 100%.
I found the Elizabeth May thing about the tanker, if you want to play it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
So
best producer in the business.
It's our friends at the CBC. The ones Pierre wants to defund, but he posts every day on his Twitter with CBC links, so it's very odd that he says that. But.
Yeah, I wonder if Pierre Poilievre would actually defund the CBC.
Okay, so there's a player link in your Slack there. We could probably play this with your NDI, but she's talking about the waters where these tankers are going, and she basically says there's no chance an oil tanker will ever enter northern BC coast.
Okay,
if you see that,
interesting. I just got to close this because. Johnny, you can.
Hey, it's almost the weekend.
No, you can tell people if you can show my screen right now. Show my screen, and I'll show you. Here's what I'm dealing with. Oh no, because it's trimmed, so you won't be able to see it. Can I move this down? It's just funny. Yeah, you can see it now. Can you show it now? See how many windows I have? No, you still can't quite see it.
He's got it.
I have like 40 windows open.
What I will tell you while Ryan's figuring that out is thank you to our 3 new YouTube members. Memberships available. If you go to our homepage, click join, choose a level of sponsorship. Shout out to Reed Clark, our
Real VIP,
who we had a fun lunch. We had a lunch and day tour of the studio. That's something our VIP guys get. Real dealers, there's a lot of them in there, and they talk every day after the show on our Discord. That's an offline members only chat, and select a level of membership, and we appreciate all of the people in there who give us a little chunk of change every month. We know it's not. It's not lost on us on everything people are paying for nowadays that you are like, hey, I support you because I want you to keep doing your thing.
Yeah, totally appreciate that. So is this what I'm playing? The minute 11 clip? Yeah. No chance oil tanker will ever enter northern BC coast. Elizabeth May.
Let's
all right, here it is.
This is awesome.
This is so they don't shut us down with a copyright
let me turn
claim.
On
this
your,
is courtesy of the CBC, and you can watch this yourself at cbc.ca. Here is our lead guest who joined us earlier today. This by way of the CBC, Elizabeth May.
There is no chance in.
Oh, no, we're not doing that. We're not giving these guys a free car commercial. Yeah. I'll tell you what, as soon as Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West does not want us talking about this other Mickey Mouse SUV that CBC is trying to.
You got dinged.
Yeah, we did get. Oh, here she is. Okay. Here she is.
Okay, start.
BC North Coast. In case you've never heard of it, the inner waters between Haida Gwaii and the coast of Canada, the west coast of Canada, is something called the Hecate Strait. You should look it up. It's the most dangerous body of water on the Canadian coastline, according to the Government of Canada, and the 4th most dangerous body of water on Earth. It has tides and currents that are extraordinary, 10 to 30 meters. They sometimes go down so low that they expose the ocean floor. That's why there's been a tanker moratorium on our north coast since 1972. And you can't wish away the science. And you can't pretend an oil tanker isn't going to break apart and contaminate the coasts, sloshing back and forth oil between the north coast of the mainland of British Columbia and the east coast of Haida Gwaii. The Haida Nation will never stand for it. British Columbians will never stand for it. They're not just barking up the wrong tree, they're barking up the wrong forest.
Barking up the wrong forest. That from Elizabeth May.
I thought that was like, you can't say that she's not, well-spoken. I mean, people.
Oh, I don't think anybody does.
She's knowledgeable. She knows what she's talking about most of the time.
Yeah,
so,
it's been a while since we interviewed her. I think it's been about a year, maybe longer. And I really appreciated do you know what it was like? The universe gave me the Elizabeth May interview. I'll give Real Talkers a peek behind the curtain. That was confirmed about 8 minutes before we went live. Mm-hmm. We've been working on it, and we're working with her team to get the time she was available. And finally, they're like, she can do 10:30 Eastern. We were like, hey, boom, let's go. Yeah. But I feel like the universe. I'm not trying to sound too whimsical here.
It was good.
I feel like I was rattled when I came in here today. I was, and it had absolutely nothing to do with being out at the top 40 under 40 after party, Johnny. And everything to do with the conviction that I was feeling, where my heart was at. My heart is heavy. My heart's heavy this week, you guys. I'm just being honest with you. And I feel like the universe put Elizabeth May off the top of our show. She took a whole different tone than what I expected. And she started talking about working together and friendships.
She
and
was going on.
It was why? I love
how she was like, I'll just tell you this one last thing about Pierre, but because I know you haven't got a question in yet. And you're like, no,
you're right. I haven't for 7 minutes.
But we got a lot of behind the scenes.
Amazing.
And that's what, people think politicians, they go to work every day and they're at each other's throats. That's not the way it is. You have to, the point of government is that you have different opinions all working together. It's not to just shut down everything the other side says, right? And Elizabeth May is one of those people, as you've seen, doesn't agree with the budget, wants other things changed, wants an agreement with Carney that he'll change this, and this. But also, I think we all had our qualms about going back to an election sooner during the holiday season, no matter what religion you are or whatever. It's the end of the year.
Can you
Everyone
December
celebrates
26th?
And takes some time to just relax. Imagine when she said, can you imagine going door to door, asking people, going to a frickin' school on Boxing Day and putting a ballot in a box? That's not democracy. That's not how it works.
You would have to do it as a caroler.
Yeah,
you'd have to be like, please vote for me. I promise I will keep my promise to you.
Everyone's in
there.
And
we will work to save the world and bring your taxes down. So vote for my party. Send me back to Ottawa because everything I do for my constituents. Sorry to interrupt your Christmas dinner now.
Carney's coming! Santa's coming from
Mark
Elf.
Carney is coming to town.
Carney!
Christine says, I feel you, Jespo. She says, in this world, my heart is heavy every day. Les says, I think all of Alberta has a heavy heart. Yeah, I don't know about the whole province, Les, but I'll take your point. Nick D says, imagine the Christmas dinner conversation. That's what every family Christmas needs is a fucking election.
So we're going out to vote tomorrow.
Yeah,
after the day after we all open presents.
You're not voting for that left-leaning communist Mark Carney, are you?
Oh my gosh, it would get crazy. All right, and then I think there's a theme kind of these last 2 weeks, like Elizabeth May was talking about, working with people, coming to negotiations, understanding you can't get what you want. Okay, well, I would like this to change with Carney, and talking about Pierre today in the way that she did, and then all the stuff going on in the States with MTG. I'm sure you saw her get on the news yesterday before the vote where she was like, this vote is going to be unanimous. The vote to release the Epstein files, which only one person voted against.
One voted against.
Wonder who that was. Anyways, but she got up in front of all these survivors and the people who have shown their face to come out and say, I was on Epstein Island, or I was trafficked by him. And she's standing there saying, she said about I'm in the Twilight Zone, Real Talkers. She said, Donald Trump, I campaigned for him. I never asked a thing for him. I'm not in his pocket. I don't owe him anything. He doesn't owe me anything. For 6 years, I pushed his agenda. I stood behind him. I nodded my head. And now I can't do it anymore. And I'm standing there watching this and being like, this is like a metamorphosis from someone who was totally, I think, has done a 180. But it just goes to show that, like, nowadays, like, it's not flip-flopping when you make the right decision. And it's not flip-flopping. Corb said this in his interview. Politicians make mistakes. He thinks the Eastern Slopes is a mistake. It's not flip-flopping to get people's response, understand that you were wrong, and to change your opinion.
Totally agree.
And now I'm looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene like, oh my God, do I like this person? Like, I used to loathe when she would come on my screen or my phone or, and now I'm like, God damn it, everything she's saying I'm 100% agreement with.
I got to find this too. Where is it? Did you guys know that I'm on Blue Sky, by the way? I'm doing my best to participate in Blue Sky a little bit more because I know a lot of you have left Twitter. I see it, like just bleeding Twitter followers. Not that I check. And a lot of you are like, go get on Blue Sky. So I'm trying to be on Blue Sky a little bit more. And you can find me there. I posted our short on Marjorie Taylor Greene, which I think that you actually did a great job on. And I basically said, and Supriya, and I kind of like did Supriya a little dirty on this one. Because after we talked about it together, I posted that Supriya says that Marjorie Taylor Greene's evolution is a good thing, which it kind of is. And Supriya talks about it. And then I asked, if you buy it, do you buy it? And, a lot of people have commented in on that, including Fuzzy Wuzzy in Toronto. I think I said all this just so I could read that handle. Fuzzy Wuzzy in Toronto says, Jesperson, again, earmuffs. Well, if your kids are still listening at this point, what are you doing? So earmuffs says, what fucking evolution? She's still an ardent white nationalist, a provocateur, and a classless MAGA loudmouth.
That's fine. I disagree with her on all those things.
Well, I don't know if she I don't know. I've not done the research.
I'm just saying.
I don't know how fair
Go to
that
your
is.
Slack right now. It's a 45-second clip. I know we're trying to get the flamethrower, but this is like what she is saying in this thing. I just put in your is where Trump called her a traitor, and she responds for 40 seconds.
Okay, I'll get to it.
Outside, in front of all the Epstein victims.
Okay, I did want to say, number one, I love what we're doing right now. We have a meeting in 34 minutes, but it doesn't matter because we don't have another episode coming up, and this is kind of like
a little extra.
We're giving the people a little extra, but do you know why we are? It's because all you guys are here. You're in our live chat, you're fired up, and you're interacting with us, and that's why we're doing it. And honestly, let me profess, we love you guys. Before I get to MTG, who is
Clay Higgins,
the one shady mofo that voted against releasing the Epstein files? It is Clay Higgins, U.S. congressman who voted no on release. I'm referencing reporting by Al Jazeera. The House approved the measure by an overwhelming margin of 427, including 216 Republicans with one vote of dissent. Democrats and Republicans anticipating a clean, unanimous vote to force the release of Jeffrey Epstein's case files, but one member did not join the consensus. Republican Representative Clay Higgins of California. No, I'm just joking. Of Louisiana. I'm just joking. Okay, so who is this guy? Well, he's represented Louisiana's 3rd congressional district since 2017, known as one of the most far-right members of the House, takes positions that fall outside Republican mainstream, and Kelsapries, a strong Trump supporter. He's drawn national attention for years because of controversy. He worked in law enforcement before Congress, where he faced several misconduct complaints, became well-known online for his dramatic, tough-talking Crime Stopper videos, which helped launch his political career.
COVID denier.
Yeah, COVID denier. He posted a message on Facebook in 2020 threatening the use of force against armed protesters alongside a photo of black demonstrators carrying long guns. Says, if we recognize threat, you won't walk away. Facebook later removed the post. During COVID-19, as you mentioned, Johnny, he was openly skeptical about the virus, claimed that the Chinese Communist Party had created and weaponized it. And in 2021, he claimed that ghost buses, unmarked vehicles that he said were carrying undercover agents or provocateurs, were sent to the U.S. Capitol on January 6th to spark the violence. Al Jazeera reports, quote, no evidence has ever supported the Higgins claim.
The ghost bus is mixed in with Biden's FBI.
He was also one of those that supported President Trump's unsubstantiated claim that Haitian immigrants were eating the pets. You remember that one? They're eating the pets. They're eating the dogs.
They're eating the dogs.
They're eating the cats.
They're eating the cats.
Okay, let me get to this short of MTG here.
It's incredible.
Is this going to give another car commercial?
I checked it for no ads.
Okay, here we go. I'm ready. You tell me, and then I'll start it again. Are we ready to rock? All
Turn the volume on. It's X'd out at the bottom.
Volume is on.
Nope,
it's
down
X'd
at the bottom.
out at the bottom. You guys are getting some insight into what it's like to work with me.
I just thought these words were like incredible.
Here's Johnny's new political crush.
No, get outta here.
I'm joking.
Don't
I'm
spread
joking.
that shit.
Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene.
It's called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free. I won my first election without his endorsement, beating 8 men in a primary. And I've never owed him anything, but I fought for him for the policies and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women and refusing to take my name off the discharge petition. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
God damn it, Marjorie.
Did you see that ABC News?
I got a poster of her on my wall.
Johnny's all of a sudden gone full MTG.
I'm writing, Johnny Infamous Green on my school notebook.
God. Oh, my gosh.
I'm just kidding. But, it's hard. This is what I'm talking about. It's hard to disagree with someone who I've loathed for so long when they're saying exactly what every other person except for Clay Higgins is thinking when they voted on this. Why have we been waiting years for this? Why are people not in jail? Why, at the very least, don't we expose them so that they can't continue to profit or avoid being put in prison for profiting from abusing children, abusing women, trafficking humans, and a lot of them are absolutely doing that. They're avoiding it.
Yeah.
They're avoiding it. And they're all people who are very rich, who are very powerful. I mean, yeah, some of them are in the news because, they were on a flight or in a picture with a girl, but they're still out there. Like even Prince, is it Philip? Andrew, sorry. I mean, they're like, well, they removed his royal title and all this. He's still got a royal bank account. He's still living in a lap of luxury, and he's abused women, and he's likely on video and audio, thousands of tape that we still haven't seen. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind that we're letting child abusers scathe justice. Avoid it.
On the heels of what MTG just said, this is now our first 2+ hour episode in a long time, but we'll wrap things up soon. We'll get to the flamethrower. I mean, I guess if you care that it's long, you're probably not listening anymore. And if you love it, then we love you. So thanks.
You sure you don't want to throw in the Trump dejectors video? No, I'm just kidding. That's too much.
Yeah, we'll do that next week. Yeah, I know it's pretty wild what you've been working on. But did you see this Mary Bruce exchange?
Oh yeah.
She's an ABC News. She's the chief White House correspondent for ABC. President denouncing her as a terrible reporter a couple of days ago, threatening the network's license to broadcast after she asked him pretty sharp questions at the White House. She was among reporters led into the Oval Office to question the president and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Mm-hmm.
She asked whether it was appropriate for his family to be doing business in Saudi while he was president. This is wild.
And the guy's sitting there.
He's sitting right there. Check this out.
This is great.
We'll play this because I thought this was Trump. The dancing that Trump does is crazy. Here it is.
Mr. President, is it appropriate, Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president? Is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the
But the
worst.
question is
One of the
legitimate,
worst
sir.
in the business. But I'll answer your question. I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now. As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
Okay, since you asked, Mr. President,
please, go
you allow me to answer. I feel painful about, the families of 9/11 in America, but, we have to focus on reality. Reality based on CIA documents and based on a lot of documents that Osama bin Laden, he used Saudi people in that event for one main purpose, is to destroy this relation, to destroy the American-Saudi relation. That's the purpose of 9/11. So whoever buying that means they are helping Osama bin Laden's purpose of destroying this relation. He knows that strong relation between America and Saudi Arabia, it's bad for extremism, it's bad for terrorism. And we have to approve him wrong and to build our relation, to continue developing our relation. It's critical in the safety of the world. It's critical against extremism and terrorism. About the journalists, it's really painful to hear, anyone that been losing his life for, no real purpose or not in a legal way. And it's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that. And it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. We're doing our best. We're doing our best that this doesn't happen again. So it's obviously we're talking about Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist that was murdered back in 2018. So Trump says
a lot of people didn't like that guy.
A lot of people didn't like that guy.
People didn't like him. So
okay. So a lot of people didn't like that. Like, sorry, what? Sorry, what did the commander-in-chief of the world's most powerful military just say? His comments contradict the U.S. intelligence assessment in 2021 released under President Biden, which determined that the Crown Prince had approved the operation that led to Khashoggi's death at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018. And it was a horrific death, by the way. The Crown Prince denied wrongdoing. You heard that, said that they did all the right things. So don't worry, everybody, nothing to see here. We did the right things. The assassination obviously sent shockwaves through the U.S.-Saudi relationship. But how about Trump targeting the reporter, Mary, who, by the way, has guts.
We were just talking about courage earlier.
I guess that's how you become a chief White House correspondent, is you ask questions like that in the halls of power, in the hall of power. But
it wasn't just the question, it was the follow-up connected. So she was like, nailed him and then nailed the Saudi,
the Crown Prince.
Well.
And she basically says, like, people are furious that you're in the Oval Office right now. But like you said, Trump, you're mentioning someone, he's talking about this journalist. You're mentioning someone that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman. But whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen, he says. Things happen. But the Crown Prince knew nothing about it, says Trump. You don't have to embarrass our guests.
Things happen to journalists. Things happen to Jeffrey Epstein. Things just happen, Ryan.
Things happen. I'm now choosing on the fly which of our sponsors will not mind being referenced immediately after some of the most heated conversations that we've had in the history of this broadcast. And if I know anything, it is the beauties at California Closets. Absolute bar none. Flamethrower coming up in 2 minutes or less. Best in the business is California Closets at custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. We are customers of California Closets. I was a customer of California Closets before Real Top was even a gleam in my father's eye. What? California Closets builds everything they install right here in Alberta. They are proudly Canadian owned, and they guarantee everything they install for the life of your home. You can have a conversation with their designers at no cost to you. It's a free consultation. They can talk to you about the space you're looking to transform, the budget you're working with, and go from there. You can request that free consultation today at californiaclosets.ca. Hey, if you're into the jacket I'm wearing today, or if you're looking for your own men's custom, either business and formal wear, or even luxury casual wear, may I direct you to The Helm. We love working with these guys. We're proud of this partnership. They're a block from our studio in downtown Edmonton, a 3-story retail experience. Johnny's showing you right now some of their latest collections. They've got it all laid out. They've got an incredible staff there. They can help you look good. I walk in, I give them the name of the event or the vibe I'm looking for, and they basically lay it out for me. Here's what you need to wear. Now, I understand that not every Real Talker's in Edmonton. Not every one of you can visit The Helm in store, so you can always check out thehelmclothing.com. You can check out their Winter picks to suit every personality and style. The Helm's 2025 gift guide is out. You can shop the gift guide at thehelmclothing.com, and the promo code REALTALK, all one word at checkout, is going to knock 10% off your order. Pick it up for yourself. Pick it up for somebody you love. Real Talk. The promo code takes 10% off your order at thehelmclothing.com. How cool is it that we have a chance every single day to talk about the Royal Alexandra Hospital? Today, I'm a bit fired up about what's going on there. They don't want to be dragged into that controversy with me. So let me point out on a positive note that for 125 years, some of the best surgeons, physicians, nurses, hospital personnel, porters, custodians, cafeteria workers have been transforming people's lives, and that's all due in part to donors who truly make the difference at the Royal Alexandra Hospital. You can consider a donation today. Here's to the next 125 years at the Royal Alex. Check out give-to-royalalex.org. Maybe consider a donation for the future in honor of the past. And of course, John, I also just wanted to mention very quickly before we move on, our friends at UCAN Youth Services. They've got their, it's kind of like a gift guide thing going on right now. I don't even need a music bed. Give me a music bed. Why not? Why the hell not, John?
Spin it back. Run it back.
Run it back. Tell that studio band to put out their smokes and get back on their guitars. In all seriousness, guys, UCAN Youth Services doing incredible work right now for young people, helping them out of harm's way onto a path of economic independence. For 12 to 17-year-olds, that's through their relentless outreach. They've also got these ready-to-work programs. They're kind of like pre-employment programs, the Road to Work, which prepares 17, 18 to 24-year-olds for careers in the construction industry. And then their Verto project, which is like helping a lot of times with the basics, just like understanding how to put a resume together, like just getting ready to go and sort of put yourself out there. It takes guts, especially for people that haven't had doors opening in front of them like some of us have been lucky enough to have. We want to encourage you this time of year to make Christmas brighter for the youth at UCAN Youth Services. Check out ucan.ca to give the gift of confidence this Christmas. Bus passes, warm socks, coffee cards. Fill a stocking this holiday season that removes barriers and builds confidence for Edmonton youth starting their first jobs at ucan.ca.
Run it back. What a fun show we're having.
This is one of the I know I rolled in a little hot today. Elizabeth May kind of felt like a gift from the universe today in a way. Also a gift from Mark Carney, wasn't she?
I am putting that out on a post today. Ryan Jesperson calls Elizabeth May gift from the universe.
Well, and you know what? This is going to be weaponized by the people that think I'm a left-wing pinko commie.
Of course.
In fact, no longer than an hour ago, Mr. Jesperson called Elizabeth May a gift from the universe, that pinko commie leftist environmental extremist.
But a very, very fun show. You want to do Trump dejectors or go right to the flamethrower and start
I want to
screaming?
save the Trump video that you've put together maybe for Monday or early next week. By the way, guys, we're going to be celebrating Real Talk's 5th anniversary on Monday, which is unbelievable. I know a lot of you have been here since episode 1. Can you believe 5 years? Technically, the date, November 23rd, will be over the weekend, and Monday's episode with Supriya in studio.
Season 6.
We're going to celebrate the kickoff to Season 6. Season 6. What do they say?
Congrats, buddy.
I think, well, whatever. It takes a village. I don't mean whatever. Thank you. But thanks to you. Thanks to those that have come before you. Thanks to our regular and recurring guests. And most importantly, our sponsors and our audience. We love you guys. And we'll profess our love to you in further depth and detail coming up on Monday.
Do you know what the average... Little quiz here. The average number of episodes a podcast has?
Oh, I have no idea.
10.
10?
10.
The average number?
Most podcasts are either like they're like true crime, where they're kind of like a series, episode 1 through 10 or 1 through 8 or whatever. And a lot of them, over 85% of them, don't get past episode 10. They launch and whatever. Do you know how many episodes Real Talk has as of today?
I'm going to say 1,068. No.
How much you putting on this?
I'm going to say
lunch.
I'm going to say 1,084. Yeah, I'll put lunch on it.
Wow, 1,082. Right?
Really? Yeah. Wow, look at that. Dubious says you guys have created a pillar of independent media. Thanks. I mean, I'm not. This is not bullshit, guys. I mean it. Like, we wouldn't be here without you. Like, we literally wouldn't be here without you guys. So we appreciate it. I will say this one thing that we're proud of that we rarely talk about. I don't think we've ever said this on the air before, but we know, with regards to downloads and numbers, Real Talk is established as a top 0.5 In other words, the top 0.5% of global podcasts based on downloads.
It doesn't sound as good.
It's tough to say.
Everyone asks me, like, how's the podcast going? I'm like, good. We're in the top 1%. And they're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, do you want me to get out like a graph and show you numbers? Basically, if we got $1 for every download we'd have, we would be retired. We would be on our own.
Well, it's
I was
going to
say something bad there. We'd have our own island.
I will say this. Even if we won the lottery, we will still bring Real Talk to you. It'll just be once a week. How's that? But we'll fuck around like this, right? You know what I mean? Like 2 hours. This is like a long-ass podcast. This is fun. We didn't plan to do this. I don't know what we're supposed to do. The rest of our day is pooch now because this is usually when we're working for real. But I will say this. Tracy wants to know if we're going to do maybe 3 shows a day so we can get everything covered. From Tracy, we might just have to hire some more hosts. Whiterim says, 5-year anniversary show. Interesting. Thanks very much, Whiterim. Asking if we're going to bring back the old band.
Former guests. Former employees.
Get the band back together. Yeah, maybe.
I see some of them are posting about our Andrew Knack interview. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was good. Yeah. Right on.
Still supporting from afar.
You know who has been with us from the very beginning, from episode 1?
I know.
You know.
I know.
And you know where I'm going with this, John. It's the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. They have been with us for, 1,082 episodes?
1,000
Every single one of them. 1,000 years. And every single week, the final episode of the week, they present the Flamethrower. That's the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. This is an all Bill 9 edition. These are all emails received literally just yesterday. This one from Jill, who says, Jespo, I really appreciated your November 19th episode. Allow me to give you the perspective of a child who was on puberty blockers. Jill says, I was diagnosed with precocious puberty at 7. I won't go into the details of my symptoms or diagnosis, but my treatment was puberty blockers, the same ones that transgender youth would be given today, and I am the living proof that some of your commenters are believing foolish garbage that they're finding online. Jill says, I'm now a woman in my mid-30s with a conventional female body, a menstrual cycle, and perfectly functioning reproductive system. My naturally conceived twins, who are 9 years of age, are evidence of this. Growing up in a strict Roman Catholic home, my parents would have never allowed me to take puberty blockers if they thought that it would harm me in adulthood in any way, and certainly when it came to fertility. Thankfully, my parents took medical information from doctors and specialists. Wow! Not anti-intellectual politicians or their functionally illiterate neighbors or coworkers in our small town. Bill 9 is just a starting point for this premier, and we should all wonder who she'll target next. What about my junior high best friend who had a breast reduction at 14? Maybe she should have just dealt with the back pain until she was 18, I guess. Or the parents who want to circumcise their babies. There's clear evidence that this is totally unnecessary. Surely the adults who agree with Bill 9 also oppose these and want these decisions to be left for when the kids are of legal age so they can choose. Right? Says Jill, these things are permanent. They happen all the time. Transgender youth are not having their bodies surgically altered, despite what your right-wing friend might tell you. But cisgendered youth and even newborns are, and yet, no outrage. My point is, where does this end? The public should ask themselves, who's more trustworthy on medical care, doctors or politicians? Transgender rights are human rights. Science and data-backed evidence is more important than a political party's opinion. And as a cisgender woman who took these scary puberty blockers for years, I am wholeheartedly against Bill 9. Phenomenal email from Jill. What about this one from Robert, who says, I know people who are willing to go to war because they had to wear a mask one time in a liquor store, but they won't lift a finger to help anybody having their rights stripped from them. In fact, I hear cheers and I see nods of approval. This is how politics is destroying everything cool in Alberta. We let these fuckers run roughshod over everyone while they beg for us to be civil as vulnerable people are being stomped on to cover for gross incompetence and corruption. That's not going to happen, says Robert. Recall them all. What about this one from Erin, who says, Premier, my daughter's gay, had a relationship with a transgender person for roughly 2 years. What a beautiful soul they were. He's had surgery after the age of 18 because, as everybody should know, you can't have it before then anyway. So what's your goal in all this, Premier? Wonders Erin. I had nicknames in high school. Should I have had to disclose those to staff or the government? But if I want to be called Sam instead of Samuel, should teachers have to report that to parents? This is a bully move. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, and the use of the notwithstanding clause is a huge overreach. I don't dispute your intelligence, Premier. I'm just wondering what's your end goal in all of this. Gay-straight alliances saved my daughter's life. Erin says, this makes me feel like all you care about is power, not people. I could be wrong, but if I am, you're really not showing it at this moment. What about this one from Josef, who says, I understand some Albertans are afraid and angry and frustrated with the recent use of the notwithstanding clause by our government. I ask those folks to put those feelings aside and put this energy toward organizing. It's clear to me the only way to make the UCP hear you is at the ballot box. 2 years from now, Albertans will get a chance to send a message to the UCP. The day of the next provincial election, remember what this government has done over the past month. They're counting on you to forget. That from Josef. This from Brian, who CC'd us on an email to the Premier. Says, I'm extremely disappointed in the entire government. Going after trans children is wrong. Leave this up to their parents and their doctors. Did you even consult the medical community, trans children, or their parents? This isn't about protecting kids. It's about appeasing David Parker with Take Back Alberta and Rob Anderson in the Premier's office. Brian says, I will be signing the petition to recall my MLA, who happens to be the Minister of Education. You're not listening to average Albertans, so this will be my way of expressing my disappointment. What about this one from Piration? I love that. New listener here, they say, welcome to the family. Great show, great guest. You and your co-pilot Johnny cracked me up, and I've passed your show along to my people. Thank you, Piration. Says, here's what I sent my first ever political letter to the MLA of Calgary Fish Creek. Mr. McDougall writes, The UCP received 52.6% of the popular vote. Half of Albertans, nearly half of them, did not support this party. Your duty is to serve all constituents, not just those aligned with your party. The government's current approach on Bill 9 increasingly reflects authoritarian tendencies. Alberta must not be led down a path of division and exclusion. History shows that truth and justice will prevail, and leaders who defend fairness and inclusivity are remembered with respect. Those who silence rights are judged harshly. That from Ince. What about this one from Karen, who says, Jespo, I was so worried that you wouldn't address the use of the notwithstanding clause on Bill 9, the anti-trans bills, in your November 18th show, as you had previously mentioned that Arno Kopecky would be featured. I was so relieved when the issue was hit in such a compelling way right out of the gates on the show with that Real Talk Roundtable. Thanks, Karen. She says, I'm in tears while I'm writing you, thinking about how the trans people I know must be feeling right now. It's despicable that the Premier's saying she cares about kids. This is the same woman who cried in the legislature when she spoke about the importance of GSAs as a Wild Rose MLA. You know, you've called her a friend, Ryan. I don't believe in good and evil. People are more complex than that. But to use a vulnerable minority group for political gain, as Smith is doing, I don't know, sounds pretty bad to me. That from Karen. And Joe will bring us home in this episode. Joe says, Jespo, I love the show and keep up the good work bringing actual balanced discourse to Alberta. Joe, you know we will. He says, let me explain something to the feeble-brained UCP supporters why the constant invocation of Section 33, the notwithstanding clause of the Charter, is such a big deal. Joe says, imagine the next time the NDP comes into power. If the notwithstanding clause is so normalized by this travesty of a government that the NDP takes away, I don't know, your right to vote or the Conservative Party to exist, you think it won't happen? Your names are on a list held by the Alberta government for tax purposes, but imagine you can't ever fight back because of Section 33. And the use of it expires every 5 years and we hold elections every 4. What if you could never vote again? Joe in Airdrie says, think about that before you applaud what's happened here over the past few weeks. Thanks to Joe and Airdrie and everybody else who sent us an email. These are all real emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We also take a look at our YouTube comments for future fodder for the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. When you pop in this weekend for a Flamethrower signature stack burger and a score blizzard, that's the Jespo recommendation, you make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent you. We're back on Monday with Supriya Dwivedi, Johnny Infamous, in studio, celebrating our 5th anniversary. We love you guys. Have a great weekend.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Real